all our children deserve. It's a movement to defend public schools against privatization, attacks on teacher unions, and the erosion of public school budgets to feed private charter schools. Arlene Inoue is treasurer of the United Teachers of Los Angeles.
We had more than 150 public schools in the Los Angeles Unified School District participate, and we know that we're joined by tens of thousands of our counterparts in around 80 cities in all regions of the country who are staging a series of demands that we want resources for our sustainable public community schools.
The Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools wants public schools that are well-funded and immune from corporate agendas, where all students can get equal high-quality educations and where educator and community voices are respected.
In Los Angeles, we have the Broad and Walmart Foundation saying in a report that their intention is to take out half of our public schools and replace them with unregulated charter schools. And we feel strongly about this, and we will continue to fight against the billionaires. And they may have all the money, but we do have a lot of people who are rallying around our public schools.
Workers are filing a class action lawsuit against the 16-store Dunkin' Donuts franchise in downtown Chicago. That lawsuit was announced Wednesday. The suit alleges wage theft and unsafe conditions at those stores. The Farm Labor Organizing Committee says the tobacco industry is turning a blind eye to child labor and dangerous working conditions in America's tobacco fields. Flock is protesting at the Reynolds American shareholders meeting Thursday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, demanding that Reynolds American humanize these working conditions and give workers a voice on the job. Flock's Justin Flores says that farm workers will take their message directly to Reynolds American inside the shareholders meeting and also rally outside.
We're going to have 40 people, majority of whom are young farm workers themselves and young Flock members that are there to speak about their experiences, talk about the wage theft, retaliation, and all the problems that are really just all throughout the Reynolds supply chain. Farm workers from different states, people from all over the place coming together in Winston-Salem and try to get the word out about what's happening so that Reynolds American can't keep hiding the facts from the public.
Workers Independent News is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, online at teamster.org, and by the American Federation of Government Employees, online at afge.org.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I could drag it into the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub.
You bet I cut the taxes at the top.
How dare you? How dare you? Go ahead. Make my day.
The Rick Smith Show starts now.
Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks for being here. Lots to get to. Wow. A lot of crazy all over the place. We're going to talk about Oreos. We're going to talk about Verizon. We're going to talk about the Donald now, the guy, how veterans may take a look at him, lots of stuff. But before we get into any of that, the soda tax stuff in Philadelphia, that kind of stuff, the crazy. Really, just the absolute out and out, oh my God, crazy. The quote of the day, and probably the quote of the century. Something came over me. I think the Lord came to me, and he just said, get in the truck and leave. Yeah, the Lord came over him. He said, you know what? That woman, leave her on the side of the highway. And if you haven't seen this story yet, your mind is going to be blown. Because anybody who's been stuck on the side of the road, when you call for someone to come and help you, you expect them to, one, show up, and then two, actually help you. While I was gone last weekend, my wife got a flat tire way up in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Pennsylvania, and a tow truck came. And a tow truck hooked up the van and actually towed it all the way back to our house, like 89 miles. I don't know how I would have reacted, and I have to be honest. If this were my wife, if this were my daughter, I got to be honest. I'm not quite sure how I would have reacted. Something with a tire iron, I'm sure. Here's the story. North Carolina, in a place called Travelers Rest, South Carolina. And I mean, I guess it's South Carolina. In Travelers Rest, there is a tow truck company. And the tow truck company is run by one Mr. Shupe, S-H-U-P-E. Don't want to get that wrong because I want to make sure that if you're ever in that neck of the woods, you never, ever, 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 without question, ever use the Shupe Max Towing Company that is there. Because evidently this woman got into a little wreck. Miss McQuaid is her name. Got into her car broken, smashed up, whatever. They call their mechanic. The mechanic says, hey, I can't come do it. I'll send somebody out to give you a hand, and they'll help you. So evidently, Mr. Shupe, he shows up, he hooks up the woman's car, and then as he does the walk around, he notices that Miss McQuaid has a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker on the bumper and a Bernie sign in the window. And he goes on to tell her that, you know what? And I guess very, very nicely, he's not going to tow her car. Can't do it because she's a socialist, obviously a socialist, and that she should call her government for a tow. So he leaves the woman stranded on the side of the road on I-26 there in Asheville, North Carolina. So it comes down to, and this is where you kind of got to love the insanity. He first says that, the Lord told him to do it. Because, I'm a political nitwit, probably wouldn't have played right away. Because the news cameras went and asked him questions. What are you doing? Why would you do this? And then he comes up with some cockamamie story about, those socialist people, they don't want to pay for anything. I'm going, really? You're going to paint with that kind of a broad brush? Very interesting. And then he goes into the Lord. The Lord didn't want him. The Lord told him to leave someone. And immediately I started thinking, how very Christian. Because I'm sure Jesus would have happened by and saw a bumper sticker and said, you know what? The heck with you, woman, on the side of the road with you. That's really, really very, very Christian. Now, Mr. Shupe claims to be a conservative Christian who supports Donald Trump. So it's not surprising to me that he would be that kind of an asshat. But here's the thing that bothers me. He's not alone. The sad reality is this is the kind of stuff that's going on in our country. This is the kind of stuff that scares me. Because while, our politics have been something to have conversation over and maybe heated debate back and forth, at least I thought as a nation, when someone is in need, that we would be there for each other. I've got to tell you, really very afraid of the direction a portion of our country is going. This idea, and look, what he did isn't illegal, I guess, because it's not. He didn't say anything about gender. He didn't say anything about religion. He didn't say anything about race. So I'm under the assumption that this is not illegal. It's just immoral. And to me, immoral is much more much higher on that list of things we shouldn't do than illegal, especially for a self-proclaimed Christian. And I keep coming back to that. You know, these people do a whole lot of insane things in the name of Christianity. In the name, geez, God told me to do it. You know what? That's the first sign of you need help. And as a nation, maybe that's the problem. We've had too many of these moments. We've had too many of these moments where this kind of crazy goes without, really, to me, ample punishment, which should be nobody ever use that towing service again. And one of the things that I want to be able to find out to do is if he's associated with AAA. At some point, there has to be, as a society, punishment for people who do this kind of stuff, because it could have been you. It could be me. It could be my wife. It could have been my kids. To me, something very important about saying, you know what, I'm going to call for help, and help arrives. Now, evidently, this woman is handicapped on top of all of that, to which then the story begins to change as well. He said, well, had he known she was handicapped, which clearly in the window is a handicap sticker, had he known, he would have stayed with her until someone else came. And I'm going, really? What's the difference? You're still talking about someone stranded on the side of the road, you half-wit. And this is the thing that bothers me. While we can disagree politically, I fear for the discourse of this election cycle. Win or lose, we are going in really the wrong direction. I look at this other story on the other end of the country in Oregon. You may remember this crazy woman. She took her children, the Sharp Family Singers. Here's a single woman, 10 kids, a white woman, so don't get all crazy. 10 kids, the Sharp Family Singers. She decided to take 7 of the 10 kids, and you may remember this. Back to the armed militant standoff there in Oregon. You may remember, to sing patriotic, God-fearing, loving Christian songs, about taking over an armed insurgency, that. Turns out she has been reported, and the kids actually fled her house because they got tired of being beaten, until one of the kids evidently was beaten so badly that his nose bled, I guess whipped 47 times with a rod. Good God-fearing Christian stuff. Evidently, the kids don't want to go back to mom, and the father, who is divorced, living in Colorado, showed up for the hearing, because there was a big hearing on Wednesday, to take her kids from her and really to move forward, I'm sure, on criminal charges. But according to her, he should be able to spare the rod, spoil the child. And she evidently used that rod quite often. Now, she even admits it. She said, my friends know I used the rod. That's not a secret. So to her, then, this comes down to we need to turn to God because the system is corrupt. Not that you were beating your children until they were bleeding. No, that had nothing to do with it. And this isn't the first time. You go back a couple of years, she evidently then said that her son, at the time 15, who had run away, he was happy because, she wanted him to live, quote, the right, wholesome, and pure path in which I was leading him, in which God was leading us, beating him with a rod. Good God-fearing stuff. Evidently, the single mother has lost the kids for now, and we will see what comes out of it. Again, all of this craziness in the name of religion, I got to tell you, a little off the boat. And when God tells you not to help somebody on the side of the road, it's probably not God. Just a little thought. Just a little thought. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we talk with Will Bunch about what's going on in Philadelphia with the big soda tax coming up. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Time to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931. That was the day that became known as the Battle of Harlan, or the Battle for Evarts. Harlan County, Kentucky was coal country. Miners worked long hours underground and faced dangerous and often deadly working conditions. If they attempted to form a union, they risked not only losing their jobs, but also getting evicted from their company housing. Despite this response, starting in the 1920s, the United Mine Workers of America began to make headway in organizing miners. In Harlan, the miners who dared organize were fired. They and their families were thrown out of their homes. The company brought in hired guns to enforce the evictions and to keep the union out of the mines. Union miners and these gun thugs met on the road outside of the town of Evarts. A gun battle broke out. 3 company men and 1 miner were killed. The governor of Kentucky once admitted, quote, "There exists a virtual reign of terror in Harlan County, financed in general by a group of coal mine operators in collusion with certain public officials. The victims of this reign of terror are the coal miners and their families." The Harlan County mine wars raged on for the next decade. In all, 13 miners would give their lives trying to bring a union to the Kentucky coal fields. It was one of the bloodiest struggles of the U.S. labor movement. Bloody Harlan earned its nickname.
They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. Here be a union man from the church crack. Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on?
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
This is the Media Matters Minute. I'm John Kerr. Conservative media figures had public meltdowns after Donald Trump won the Indiana primary and Ted Cruz suspended his campaign. Listen to Fox News contributor and conservative syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer on the O'Reilly Factor.
I have no idea what the so-called establishment, if it exists, is thinking. I can tell you what I'm thinking. Do I look angry?
No. You look very mellow tonight, Charles. I think you're tired.
Let's put it as I am resigned. I'm realistic.
Former Breitbart news editor at large Ben Shapiro tweeted, quote, "Fox News just called Indiana. Conservatives just called America." And Fox News contributor and prominent conservative media figure Eric Erickson tweeted, quote, "I don't want to congratulate Hillary Clinton on winning the presidency tonight, but she just did." These are just some of the many conservative commentators who declared that the impending Trump nomination signaled an inevitable loss for Republicans in the general election and the end of the Republican Party. For more on this and other stories, please visit MediaMatters.org.
The man who sends the investor class diving for their tax shelters. Rick Smith.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. So lots of going on down in the Philadelphia area as they consider their mayor's idea on taxing soda. And what it got me thinking about is, you remember back years ago, I think it was like 2008, 2009, New York wanted to do it as well. This is not new, trust me, not a new thought. And the backlash from the industry and all of these moms for grocery lists and Americans for families and We Love Dogs and Puppies and all these groups popped up to give their 2 cents on why it was a bad idea to put a penny or two tax on what is really causing a major health crisis in this country. Well, Will Bunch, author of The Burn Identity and a columnist over at the Philly Daily News, wrote a piece, Tax Soda Less, Tax Rich People More. And I thought it'd be an interesting opportunity to talk to Will. Will, thanks for taking time for us.
Yeah, hey, Rick. My pleasure. Thank you.
So really a contentious issue, taxing the soda. Seems to me that if we just called it a sin tax, called it what it would be, I'd be okay with it. But I don't think this is the best way to fund education.
Well, no, of course not. I mean, for anybody who's listening to this show in Pennsylvania, is probably aware of what a kind of messed up tax system the state has. And part of that is, not to get too deep into the weeds, but basically you're not allowed to have progressive taxation in Pennsylvania. there's a clause in the state constitution called the unitary clause, and so tax rates have to be equalized, which is why everybody pays the state income tax. So, Brian Roberts, the CEO of Comcast, who made $30-something million last year, paid the same rate of state income tax as little old me did, right? So, that's part of the problem. And so, the state tax and revenue system is just incredibly out of whack. When we're talking about schools, as I'm sure has been discussed on the show here before, Pennsylvania just really lags in state aid to education, and with a whole bunch of Grover Norquist anti-tax diehards in Harrisburg, there's just really no way to change anything, which is what Governor Wolf's tried to do to fix that. On the soda tax, I'd note that the main goal in this case is funding pre-kindergarten, pre-K. So it's kind of adding on. There are a number of kids who are in pre-K in Philadelphia. There's, I think, an estimated 5,000 who aren't getting these services and who are entering school behind the 8 ball. And so the idea of the soda tax is basically to pay for that.
Yeah, and it seems logical to me. I mean, I saw one of the tweets, someone tweeted out, saying, well, that pre-K thing, that's not important because it all averages out in the end, long run anyway. So we shouldn't even bother, I guess, is the mentality that this guy had.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rick. Could you? I had my little moment there. Could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, well, some of the tweets going out about pre-K and the advancement kids get from it were along the lines of, well, it dissipates over a couple of years. So the basic concept was, why bother doing it? Because it's only going to dissipate by the time they're in 3rd or 4th grade anyway.
Right. Well, there've been a lot of studies, and the science, for want of a better term, isn't settled on this, but. There are a lot of studies that do show. I mean, clearly there's an advantage for these kids going into grade school, and they need all the advantages they get. There's other benefits to pre-K as well. Don't forget. I mean, it's basically, an additional daycare service for people, because if you spend time in lower income neighborhoods, there's really no bigger problem than childcare. I mean, it's the reason why other issues like sick leave are such a big deal, because the need to have somebody to take care of children. So there's that benefit as well. So there's substantial benefits to pre-K, and when Mayor Jim Kenney, our new mayor who took office in January, came in, he basically concluded that given the way things were set up, the only way he was going to pay for this was a soda tax that he would try and portray as a sin tax, like you mentioned, but would also tie it to this program that most people think is a good idea, and hopefully that would get support for it.
Right, but because to me, look, universal pre-K is a great idea in my view. I saw what it did for my kids, and to be honest, they were so far ahead of every other kid in their class when they got to kindergarten that the argument that it dissipates is actually true, because they were just left to do whatever they wanted because they didn't need the help. The argument that I could see made, if every kid went into kindergarten the way my kids did, they would all be that much further ahead, and you wouldn't have that first couple of years where those kids then their advantage dissipates.
Yeah, that's right. And we're talking in this case, for the most part, about kids in rougher neighborhoods who, like we said, need all the help they can get. So that's where we stand. Mayor Nutter's kind of, I still call Mayor Nutter, it's a reflex. Mayor Kenney, excuse me, has made this kind of the kickoff, the centerpiece, the one big thing that he's trying to do as he comes into office. And so he's put an enormous amount of political capital in it. Just by way of background, some of your listeners might know or might not that Mayor Nutter, his predecessor, did try on a couple of occasions early in his mayoralty to get a soda tax, actually a smaller soda tax. I think it was 2 cents a gallon, and the one that Mayor Kenney is now proposing is 3 cents. An ounce. 2 cents an ounce, opposed to 3 cents an ounce, and met enormous resistance, enormous lobbying from the soda industry. And as a result, it got shot down. So, yeah. It's pretty audacious for Mayor Kenney to come in and propose a bigger tax, 3 cents a gallon, 3 cents an ounce.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, you had Bernie Sanders weigh in on it. You've had other politicos weigh in on it. What does it look like the possibility of it passing being?
You know, my thinking on it is this. I think there's actually a good chance that there will be some sort of soda tax that comes out of this. The thing is, we all know politics 101. I mean, anytime you cover something like a subway or a bus fare hike, for example, a smart politician always comes in with a ridiculously high proposal. They settle for something much lower. He says, all the politicians come in at a press conference, they were able to compromise and, look at this great deal we made for you, and you end up with a higher fare, or in this case, you end up with a tax. So if I had to predict, and this is just my prediction, especially there have been studies showing that the way the tax affects consumer habits, that there's really not a big difference between a 3-cent tax and what you would get from, say, a 1.5 cent tax, or even really from a 1 cent tax. So I think there's a real possibility that they will get something out of this, but it won't be a 3 cent an ounce tax. It will be more like a 1 cent an ounce or a 1.5 cent an ounce. Now, whether that's going to be enough money to pay for all the pre-K, and there's also other programs like fixing up recreation centers, park programs that they want to finance through this tax. So it'll be interesting to see if they get something out of this, and if that something is going to be enough to pay for what Mayor Kenney wants to do.
Right. Now, who's going to decide if this goes forward? What's the body that decides that?
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. It's the city council, which they, like the mayor, have all just been reelected or elected or reelected to 4-year terms. So it's 17 people. I believe the current state is 14 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So it's mainly a Democratic body. Now we did have three council members, including one of the more liberal ones, actually, surprisingly, come out yesterday. Well, first, Bernie Sanders opposed the soda tax too, so maybe it's not surprising. But come out yesterday and say they opposed it. Now, whether they opposed any tax or whether they just opposed the 3 cent an ounce tax wasn't exactly clear to me. But I have a hunch that idea is that they oppose any tax. So we'll see. I mean, he's got to get a majority. He's got to get 9 out of 17 votes. He being Mayor Kenney, is very optimistic that he can do it. It's going to be close. It's going to be very interesting next few weeks to see how this plays out.
Because at the end of the day, it's a regressive tax. Call it what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the downside. In my piece that I wrote today is on Philly.com. Tax soda less, tax rich people more. I go into that. That's the reason Bernie Sanders opposes it, and it certainly is. And it's a shame, and it's incredibly unfair in Pennsylvania that when we need new revenues, and that happens, that we always seem to find some way to go back to the middle class and back to working class people, whether it's alcohol. But the only thing that anybody will ever approve as a tax is the sin tax. We have alcohol taxes and increased cigarette taxes here in Philadelphia. Now we want to tax soda. And soda, in my opinion, there's no doubt soda's bad for you. Actually, I'm a lifelong soda addict myself, which just gave up mostly diet soda, which I hope is also really bad for you, by the way. But I just gave it up all up cold turkey last year. So from a health front, I'm totally sympathetic with the idea of getting people to drink less soda, and that's one of the additional benefits of this passed, that there would be a drop in consumption in soda, and that would presumably lead to less obesity and other health problems.
That would probably be a good thing, because like you were, I am an addict as well, and look, a 3 cent tax wouldn't stop me at all.
Well, it could be a lot. Think about it. When you go to the supermarket and you see a 2-liter bottle and it's on sale for 99 cents, if that's the case, you'd actually be paying more in taxes. You'd be paying like $1.80 in taxes, and as opposed to 99 cents for the base cost. So if it really did go through at 3 cents an ounce, you're talking about potentially a huge hit, a huge surcharge. There's no doubt about it, and there's no getting around that.
It might be a good thing, at least for me anyway. But, Will, I appreciate the time, man. Great piece. I look forward to talking to you again.
All right, Rick. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Will Bunch. Again, the piece, Tax Soda Less, Tax Rich People More. We've got a link at thericksmithshow.com. Just click on Will Bunch's name. Take you right there. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Be a lousy scab, or will you be a man?
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour news update recorded on Thursday, May 5th, 2016. I'm Mark Boulanger.
We've got some tough times ahead of us, and we've had a tough year, but look at what we've achieved together. Fighting this government's unfair and undemocratic trade union bill, winning real concessions from them through hard lobbying, hard campaigning.
That is Frances O'Grady, the General Secretary of the British Trades Union Congress. The TUC has been fighting the introduction of an anti-union piece of legislation introduced by the country's right-wing government. The legislation, called the Trade Union Bill, has now been enacted and put into law. Because of an extensive lobbying campaign by the TUC, especially in the upper unelected House of Lords, the bill has become law after many amendments. A section cancelling the automatic collection of union dues by employers has been removed. A refusal to allow online balloting for strike votes will now go to an independent investigation. And severe restrictions on picket line activities, such as demanding the identity of picketers, are no longer in the legislation. However, the TUC points out that the bill is still an odious attack on the rights of working people and their unions. For example, the trade union bill still includes a double threshold stipulation for strike votes in as yet undefined important parts of the public sector. That means unions will have to get 50% of the membership voting and then 40% of that amount in favor of strike action. Picket line captains will still have to be identified to the police. This identification is especially worrisome given the number of times workers have been blacklisted by employers such as construction companies. Domestic workers, especially migrant domestic workers, often find themselves exploited and abused by their employers. But there is a way to build protection for the workers. Radio Labour's senior correspondent C-Marie Ainsborough has a report.
The International Labour Organization is calling on countries to improve the conditions of domestic workers by adopting an international law which would give them the same rights as other workers in the country. There are about 11 million domestic workers in the world. About 75% of these workers are women. Many of them are migrant workers who have left their homes looking for decent work. According to labor leaders, labor laws protecting domestic workers are needed because they are often monetarily and sexually exploited by employers, denied rights such as time off, refused health benefits, and given heavy, almost undoable workloads. Bish Pugh Yu is a co-founder of the Hong Kong Domestic Workers Union.
The domestic workers are facing difficult times, so normally the employers think you can do a magic, you can do a lot of work within a few hours. So they have a lot of back pain, skin problems.
Elizabeth Tang is the Secretary General of the International Domestic Workers Federation.
I also asked them this question, where do you find the strength? It's so hard. And then they said, yes, but we must keep working. We must try our best. What can I say? You know, they are in far worse situation. And then they tell me, we have to work hard. We must try. I must do the same.
The International Domestic Workers Federation, the IDWF, is a global union federation. It has 50 affiliated unions, associations, and workers' co-ops operating in 43 countries. It has set itself an ambitious agenda to improve the wages and working conditions of domestic workers. Myrtle Witbooi is the president of the IDWF.
So our task for the next 5 years is to unite domestic workers' organizations, to form domestic workers' organizations, and to make sure that each one know their rights and that exploitation will stop.
The international law that the Domestic Workers Federation wants to see adopted by countries is ILO Convention 189. The ILO is the UN agency which represents national labor centers at the world level. If adopted by a country, the ILO Convention becomes part of the national legal structure. This is C-Marie Ainsborough reporting for Radio Labor.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
just when you thought it was safe, those crazy Republicans are at it again. It's time for the Rick Smith Show's Conservative Alert.
I'm still struggling with this. I got to be honest, still struggling with the guy leaving, the tow truck driver leaving the woman on the side of the road. Good God-fearing Christian guy going to leave her on the side of the road. And Arnold sent me a message saying, I've been helping people with their cars since I was a kid, all colors, all religions, political backgrounds. You're fixing a human's machine. It's that simple. And look, you know, that's the mentality of somebody who's going to come out and give you a hand no matter what, because they know that you're in need. They know that you need that helping hand at that moment. And look, the fact that that guy turned his back really tells me a lot. And look, honestly, and I hate painting with these kind of broad brushes, but the person who tells me that they're a good, God-fearing Christian Republican, that's their mentality anyway. So to be honest, not surprised. Not surprised at all that he would turn his back on someone in need. Really. Not surprising to me at all, and really not surprising with this next story from Texas. You know, we think we're beyond all that racism stuff. Evidently, Dorothy Barrera, she wanted to bury her husband of more than 40 years who passed back in February. Wanted to bury her in the San Domingo Cemetery. Got to tell you, just from the name, I didn't realize that San Domingo was a whites-only cemetery. Let me say that again. Did not realize that the San Domingo Cemetery was a white-only cemetery. Well, evidently, that's what Deborah found out, or Dorothy found out, when she wanted to bury the remains of her husband, Pedro. And what's interesting to me is you read, and I've found a couple of different articles on it, where the Cemetery Association, the Normanna Cemetery Association, quite honest about it. The Jimmy Bradford, who evidently was the cemetery operator, evidently told the woman that, sorry, can't do it. The board voted and they said no, because he's Mexican. Couldn't bury him there because he's a Mexican. And then directed her up the road to go up and bury him with the N-word and the Mexicans. So I guess they're not together, according to this federal complaint. And when Barrera was asked about it, you know, he said, yeah, you know, it is what it was. You know, he wasn't supposed to be buried there because he's a Mexican or of Spanish descent or whatever you want to say. He said, that's what I told her, and that's what we've been doing. Evidently, no burials if you're not good, white, God-fearing, you come with me, God-fearing, conservative, Christian Republican. Evidently, that's it. And this is really sad. I mean, because this is the world we're turning into. And I know, not everyone's like this. There are a lot of people like this. I mean, that's the scary thing to me. There are tons of people who think this way. And when I went back home to Cleveland, I realized I have some of them in my family. I mean, we all do, right? I just didn't realize there was many that populated the ranks of my family. And it's all this constant right-wing media that keeps telling the white working class of this country that the reason that you're struggling, those people, you know, the Mexicans, the cans, you've heard it. And I got to be honest, it's scary to me that, and look, you know, you go back and read about the rise of fascism and the rise of Hitler and all of that stuff. No one thought it possible there either. So I'm really, honestly and truthfully, very afraid of what this presidential election cycle is going to bring us. The kind of hatred, the kind of xenophobia, the kind of insanity. Look, these stories aren't getting less frequent. And maybe it's just we're now paying attention to them. I don't know. Or maybe the people who are doing it are more brazen and more bold and coming out and saying, I'm not going to help you because you differ than me. You can't be buried here, not because, hey, we're full or some other nonsensical reason or some other reason that they make up, but no, because you're not white. So I'm curious, is this the world that we want to live in? Is this what we want our children to inherit? And the stories just keep getting crazier. A little bit later on, some religious fundamentalism that, I've been saying, be careful because we're heading towards Christian Sharia law. One of those stories coming up, you're not going to want to miss it. Going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on today, the National Day of Action on the Verizon strike. We're going to get an update and a thought on what's going on there. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. Where working people come to talk.
Controversial, thought-provoking, opinionated. Rick Smith.
No one likes a smart aleck, or a stupid one for that matter. A really stupid one is called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which masquerades as an educational group that simply assists state officials with policy research. In fact, it is a corporate-financed, far-right-wing political front group that writes and aggressively pushes anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-environmental, anti-immigrant, anti-public, and other extremist anti-the-people legislative proposals. ALEC's operatives take these cookie-cutter bills from state capital to state capital, getting Republican governors and key legislators to introduce them. Then, ALEC helps organize AstroTurf campaigns to ram such ugliness into law. Governor Scott Walker's repressive agenda in Wisconsin is an ALEC product. So is Arizona's war on Latinos, as is Florida's murderous stand-your-ground, shoot-'em-up law. However, all of this led ALEC to get stupid. Its leaders got to thinking they were bulletproof, that they could shove this stuff down people's throats all across the country and the people would just accept it. Wrong. In fact, stupidly arrogant. Not only have people rebelled, they've also organized and mobilized. Groups like Center for Media and Democracy, Color of Change, Common Cause, Occupy Wall Street, and People for the American Way have rallied grassroots people to hit ALEC where it really hurts, its pocketbook. Suddenly, key corporate sponsors were hearing from outraged citizens and customers, and company after company is now withdrawing their sponsorship. Among those recently jumping off the ALEC bandwagon are Coca-Cola, Kraft Foods, Mars, McDonald's, PepsiCo, and Wendy's. This is Jim Hightower saying, to connect with these various efforts, go to alecexposed.org. That's ALEC exposed.org.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
Would you dive 14 feet deep in the Susquehanna to keep a bridge safe? Would you spend night after night with prisoners to keep your community safe? Would you spend Christmas Eve plowing snow to keep roads safe? AFSCME members do. Men and women who choose to serve in public service. Mine inspectors, 911 dispatchers, healthcare workers, parole agents. You may not think about them, but no, they're all thinking about you. This message brought to you by AFSCME Council 13.
We're not in this fight alone. This fight isn't just about Verizon, but about all the corporate greed in this country. You are done. We are here to put you down. Every last one of you corporate executives taking and raping from the average person. We are the working class. We are the 99%. We are the majority. You will not beat us. You will not win.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. So back on April 13th, as you may know, tens of thousands of workers at Verizon took to the picket lines to defend their job security, to demand fair pay, decent wages, hours, conditions, all that. But a little bit of the background, the things that I think kind of important. This is a company over the last 3 years that has made $39 billion in profit. Nobody's saying, hey, help them out, they're struggling. No, this is a record-breaking profit couple of years. 39 billion, yes, 9 zeros after 39 billion in profit. And get this, the other side of it. And we hear about the profit a lot. The other side, from 2008 to 2013, they paid an effective federal tax rate of negative 2.5%. That means we paid them. So not only did they make $39 billion in profit off of their customers, we, the taxpayers, paid them. So how do they thank the workers who did all the work? Well, we're going to ship their jobs overseas and, well, see what else we can get out of their pockets. And today is the National Day of Action. Shareholders meeting in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I guess is a great place, which is why I thought I'd ask Tom Crawford. He is the Western Region Vice President of CWA Local 13,000. He represents members here in Pennsylvania and across the Commonwealth. Tom, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So today, the National Day of Action, kind of a curious place to have your shareholders meeting, Albuquerque, New Mexico. What do you think?
It's embarrassing. You know, we've embarrassed them at a few of their shareholders meetings, so now they try to move it to where we can't have a show of force, but we did. We had a few hundred people out there and told them what we felt of their bargaining position.
Now, I threw out a couple of numbers here, and maybe I hope you've got the same numbers. $39 billion over the last 3 years. They've paid a negative tax of 2.5% over the last 5 years, and yet they want you guys to what? Give up job security, give up health care, retirement, what?
Call center jobs. They want to be able to ship overseas, out of the country, and lay off our workers here. Close call centers here in the United States, here in Pennsylvania. They last summer they laid off 42 technicians who install the FiOS. You know, the number one product they have for internet, phone, and TV, and they're laying off these members because they don't want to do the FiOS build out, and they want to continue that. So we're fighting for good jobs and for good service for the customers and the communities.
Why do you think that they don't want to build out the FiOS? Because I've heard it's a fantastic product.
I have it in my house. It's a wonderful product. Why they don't want to build it out, I don't know. They think that everything can be done from Verizon Wireless, and everybody knows how unreliable wireless technology is.
Yeah, no,
but that's not what they want.
Yeah, I mean, that whole "can you hear me now?" No, the answer is I usually can't.
Right. And how many people have dropped calls repeatedly or go miles without service? Across the middle part of Pennsylvania, there's so many people that don't have wireless type service, and they want to abandon the copper landlines to them. I've heard stories of people having to drive miles to get service to be able to call for an ambulance.
Wow.
That's embarrassing in today's day and age.
It is embarrassing, but the sad reality, the profit motive seems to be so strong that all of the sanity that comes with what's good for society and what's good for your workforce seems to get thrown out the window.
But when you talk about profit, when they make $1.5 billion a month, when's enough?
Well, I think, as I've been saying, the CEO from Caterpillar answered that question quite eloquently. He said never. It's never enough. There's never going to be enough, Tom.
That's a shame.
And what that means is more for them, less for you. And this is where the struggle appears to me to be, right?
Right. If they were a struggling company, we would understand, and we'd be working with them to make them profitable. But that's not the case.
How much of what's going on? Because you said that they want to move everything to the wireless part of Verizon, which, as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is mostly non-union. They have held off any unionization efforts on the wireless side. How much of this is just pure old union busting?
All of it. I believe all of it's union busting. They're now hiring full-time replacement workers across the footprint. They think that they can just break this union, and I think it's Lowell McAdams who wants to retire and say, I broke this union.
So
that's just my opinion.
Well, it seems that way. I mean, from the reports that I see and the video of him on the picket line saying that, everything that is not, we don't want to outsource any jobs. We don't want to do any of those things. And yet his negotiating team is doing just that.
I don't believe he has any truth when he talks.
So as you're standing on the picket line, as you guys are out there in the street, what kind of response are you getting from folks?
We're getting a great response from the public, from other labor organizations, people dropping off food, water, constantly people honking and stopping, and just we had other members of other units just here a couple minutes ago on this picket line. That we have a dozen of us in Monroeville, which is just outside of Pittsburgh. We're getting a huge amount of response everywhere.
I mean, do the folks that you're talking to, do they get that you're out there not just for yourselves, but for workers all across this country? Because the reality is most workers, Tom, and you know this probably as well as anyone, most workers in this country just have these things imposed on them. Company wants to move overseas, they go without any input from their workers whatsoever because they don't have the benefit of being union members.
I think people are starting to open our eyes up to these corporations because everybody's been affected. Everybody's got a family member's been laid off or a plant that's closed while they move the jobs overseas. So I think so many people have been affected. They understand that this isn't just a fight for us in the CWA and the IBEW. This is a fight for everybody, all working class across the country.
Do you think that translates to the folks that you're seeing on the streets? Are they identifying that with you?
I think so. Yes, they're stopping by and absolutely saying that.
I mean, because I look at this, and you know, my grandfather back in the 40s and 50s was saying there were strikes all the time, and people understood that the people who were on strike were not just striking for themselves, but to make working conditions better for the entire industry and other industries by raising up the floor and demanding better wages, hours, and conditions. And the hope is by seeing strikes like this and others that maybe as a society we begin to start thinking that way once again.
I think 4 years ago when we were on strike, so many people were blaming us, say we were demanding more money. And I keep telling everybody, and everybody seems to understand it this time, this isn't about money. This is about good jobs in America.
And that's something that's resonated really, I think, in this presidential cycle as well, which is why I think you see on the Republican side Donald Trump rising with a lot of white working class folks, and Bernie Sanders as well. That trade issue seems to be front and foremost on our minds.
Right. Politicians understand it completely because if their constituents continue to lose work, they're going to have to move. And then, eventually they'll be out of jobs because nobody's left.
Yeah, I mean, what's frustrating to me is I look at a company like Verizon and a negative tax rate of 2.5%. We're actually paying them to stay here, which is kind of bizarre to me.
Right. Plus the incentives they get for offering services. I mean, we've given them so many concessions of taxpayer dollars through the years. It's embarrassing.
Now, as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sunday the company decided that they were going to cut off everyone's health care, which I see as a kind of a slap in the face.
Right. They did it purely to see how many people they could get to cross the picket line with a threat of no benefits. And so the union's going to be taking care of those benefits of anybody who needs them. So we will not have anybody out without benefits who has a real need. Verizon can slap us in the face. We're going to take care of our membership.
And that, to me, is the message that the union should be sending, and that you are sending. And that's something I think is important for people to understand, that collectively you're going to take care of your own.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So let me ask you on the other side of this, how is it that we can help? How can people driving by help? What should we be doing? Is there a way that we can influence Verizon to say, hey, get back to the table if you're not, or negotiate in good faith? What can we do?
The company understands one thing, and that's Verizon Wireless. So if we had more people boycotting Verizon Wireless and switching to AT&T, the only unionized wireless provider, which I'm a 29-year Verizon employee, and I carry an AT&T phone. If we had more people making that switch, that's the impact we're going to have.
Yeah, I'm with you. But at the end of the day, isn't that the power that the working class of this country has? There are two things I've often said workers have power in. One is obviously what they spend, and two is folding their arms. And going out on strike and folding your arms and saying no is one thing, but the other part of it, the power of the dollar and the power of withholding that dollar, I think is just as important.
Right.
But Tom, I appreciate you taking a little time for us. Great talking to you. I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and I would love to have you come back and talk to us again.
Anytime. Thank you very much, sir.
Great talking with you, Tom Crawford. He is the vice president of the Western Region, CWA Local 13,000. I look at this, and the reality is, you look at the amount of money that this company makes, $39 billion over the last 3 years, and as Tom said, $1.5 billion each and every month. And they're not paying this oppressive tax rate that everyone says, oh, the corporations are just being overtaxed. Yeah, we paid them 2.5%. Yeah, good for us. So even with that, despite the fact that they've got record-breaking profits, despite the fact that they're able to dodge paying their taxes, they're still looking for more. There's never enough. They want more and more and more. This insatiable need for the shareholders to have more at some point has to be changed. And I'm not sure how you do that. Maybe we go to a stock tax. Maybe we increase the capital gains tax. Maybe we do a couple of things. But at the end of the day, what these workers are doing, what these folks on the picket line are doing, putting their families, their lives on the line, putting their careers and their future on the line. Sadly, this is where we have to be right now. Just because these folks are saying, look, we want to preserve these good family-sustaining wage jobs here in our local communities. We want to make sure that we have good employment here locally and that our kids have an opportunity of that as well. I mean, what's frustrating to me is it appears from the outside, and this is purely my observation, when you look at what Verizon has done, it's been all about busting the union. It's been all about constant turmoil, constant conflict, constantly forcing the employees to defend what past generations have fought for. And it's not even about moving forward as much as it is just standing still. That's the frustrating part. And the really other frustrating part is that you're going to have people who are going to go scab and go and take those jobs now during a time of turmoil, knowing that, look, you're not going to be there when they get back, when this ends. And trust me, it will end. So our scab friends, understand, they're not going to be loyal to you. It's not going to happen. And I know you might think, hey, I'm going to get a job and this will be great. They're going to let you go, and then they're going to cut you off. And then forever you will have that label. People will never forget that you were the scab. Just how it is. So, the enticement of, hey, a short-term job, because it's going to be short-term, eventually they go back. But what you've done is you've weakened the position of workers in this country to negotiate for all of us to have better wages, hours, conditions, all of us to do better as a society, all of us to do better as a working class. And until you wake up to that, we're going to continue to have these kind of things happen. I mean, Jay Gould, and I used the quote yesterday, Jay Gould famously, it's attributed to him, but famously said, I could easily pay half the working class to kill the other half. Here it is, right in front of us. You've got this behemoth of a corporation, extraordinarily profitable, saying it's not enough. It's never enough, and it's never going to be enough. And that's why, like Tom said, if you got Verizon Wireless, start thinking about switching over to AT&T. Start thinking about leaving. And if you need Verizon products, don't buy them now. That simple. Anyway, if you missed any portion of the program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. If you are in one of those areas that only have pickup hour one, go to thericksmithshow.com and pick up the rest of the show. Right back after this. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to thericksmithshow.com. If you've missed any portion of the program, you can download the podcast at thericksmithshow.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. May 4th was a national day of action to reclaim public schools in 80 cities nationwide. The Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools, consisting of more than 100 community and labor organizations, organized the day of rallies, marches, and walk-ins for schools all our children deserve. It's a movement to defend public schools against privatization, attacks on teacher unions, and the erosion of public school budgets to feed private charter schools. Arlene Inoue is treasurer of the United Teachers of Los Angeles.
We had more than 150 public schools in the Los Angeles Unified School District participate, and we know that we're joined by tens of thousands of our counterparts in around 80 cities in all regions of the country who are staging a series of demands that we want resources for our sustainable public community schools.
The Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools wants public schools that are well-funded and immune from corporate agendas, where all students can get equal high-quality educations and where educator and community voices are respected.
In Los Angeles, we have the Broad and Walmart Foundation saying in a report that their intention is to take out half of our public schools and replace them with unregulated charter schools. And we feel strongly about this, and we will continue to fight against the billionaires. And they may have all the money, but we do have a lot of people who are rallying around our public schools.
Workers are filing a class action lawsuit against the 16-store Dunkin' Donuts franchise in downtown Chicago. That lawsuit was announced Wednesday. The suit alleges wage theft and unsafe conditions at those stores. The Farm Labor Organizing Committee says the tobacco industry is turning a blind eye to child labor and dangerous working conditions in America's tobacco fields. Flock is protesting at the Reynolds American shareholders meeting Thursday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, demanding that Reynolds American humanize these working conditions and give workers a voice on the job. Flock's Justin Flores says that farm workers will take their message directly to Reynolds American inside the shareholders meeting and also rally outside.
We're going to have 40 people, majority of whom are young farm workers themselves and young Flock members that are there to speak about their experiences, talk about the wage theft, retaliation, and all the problems that are really just all throughout the Reynolds supply chain. Farm workers from different states, people from all over the place coming together in Winston-Salem and try to get the word out about what's happening so that Reynolds American can't keep hiding the facts from the public.
Workers Independent News is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, online at teamster.org, and by the American Federation of Government Employees, online at afge.org.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
If a bomb goes off, our wounded warriors, instead of losing their legs, their arms, worse, they're okay. They go for a little ride upward and they come down. The best stuff, all gone, taken by the enemy. Taken by the enemy. So we don't know who we're fighting for. We don't know how to fight anymore.
I've heard that clip, gotta be now 10 times, and I still don't understand what exactly he's talking about. That's one of those, what exactly is it that you do here kind of conversations. What are you talking about? Worse than having your arms and legs blown off, worse than being, bombed, worse than that? Worse? I'm struggling with it. Which is why I've asked our friend Will Fisher, Executive Director of the Union Veterans Council, come talk to us about the presidential candidates. Evidently, that's the guy. He's the Republican nominee. We're still waiting to see on the Democratic side if it's Bernie or Hillary, but that's the guy. Will, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, thank you so much for having me today. I'll tell you, when you say that you struggle to, understand, what Trump's talking about, I'll tell you, you're not the only one. I think the word that comes to mind is charlatan, which the definition of a charlatan is a person falsely claiming to have a special knowledge or skill, a fraud. And I can think of no word that better encapsulates the GOP frontrunner, the GOP nominee for President of the United States, than Donald J. Trump. This is a person who, in one side of his mouth, says, I want to do everything when I'm president to get jobs for veterans. And out of the very same side of his mouth says that he believes that wages for American workers, folks like you and me, are already too high. Now, Rick, I would challenge you to find a single listener of yours who thinks that right now they're getting paid too much.
I've never had one.
This is somebody who says that the clip you just now paid, that when people get hit by roadside bombs, they just go for a little ride in the air. This is a man who compared his sex life in the 80s and 90s to his own Vietnam. Trump bangs the drum for more war, but avoided service on his own, with the help of multiple deferments and having a rich dad. Donald Trump wants to privatize the VA. Donald Trump attacked the veteran street vendors in New York City and referred to them as turning into, they were going to turn Fifth Avenue into a third world outdoor flea market. Donald Trump hosts fundraisers for veterans, but nobody knows where in the hell any of the money actually goes. This is somebody who went to an elite military school and compared that to actually serving in the military. Not to mention, this is also someone, in addition to being a charlatan, who is also a chicken hawk. I cannot recall any time before the 2016 presidential election cycle when we have heard the drums of war banged louder by anybody than they have been by Donald Trump. Whether it's talking about executing the family members of suspected terrorists or saying they're going to, quote, bomb the you-know-what out of people, all being said by someone who never actually served themselves. This is a man who wants to send more young American women and men into combat, Rick. Not your kid, not his kids. Not his kids. We're not going to see, Ivanka putting a flak jacket on. Eric's not going to be lead man on a point anytime soon. But it's going to be Rick Smith's kids, and it's going to be the kids of your listeners and the middle-class, working-class families all across this country.
And that's the sad thing, and that's the
despicable.
thing that's the thing that infuriates me, Will. But, why is it that we see the working class of this country, especially the white working class, high school educated, males particularly, so fervent for this guy? What is it about us as a society that seems to be drawn to this? Because I got to be honest, I didn't think he'd get more than 35, 36% of the Republican vote. He's well above 50%.
Yeah. Well, so I think a couple points on that. Some of it is the language we use, and especially about veterans and military action. I have called on any elected official, whether it's the smallest town in the smallest office in Pennsylvania to President of the United States, to please stop using the expression boots on the ground. If you want to talk about sending people into combat, sending the children of your, the people listening to you, their kids into combat, say so. Don't talk about this boots on the ground nonsense, because it's human beings that wear those boots. Now, to your question about Trump, are there working class people supporting Donald Trump? Yes, but they're working class Republicans who are supporting Donald Trump. I think that by and large, the working class of America will not support Donald Trump in November when it comes to the general election. I think that is overwhelmingly the working class of the United States, especially the working class who belong to trade unions.
Well, I got to tell you, Will, I hope you're right on that. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Will Fisher, Executive Director of the Union Veterans Council. You want to check out their website, unionveterans.org. So let me ask you this, because, when you talk about the working class, we always talk about the veteran class being, completely linked and tied to the working class. How do veterans and veterans groups look at the Donald, and really on the other side, how do they look at the two Democratic candidates, in this cycle right now, in your opinion?
Okay. No, I think that, look, again, just like the working class, the veteran class has Republicans within it. And some of those folks are people who are Republican, and they're Republican and working class. So they have a Republican up there saying, I'm going to, end bad trade deals. And they say, hey, that's my kind of Republican, right? You know, and when you hear something like that, you know, and you're white and you're a male, it's easier for you to maybe not hear some of the other awful things that this person is saying. At the very same time, what we strive to do as the Union Veterans Council is to educate people on where folks really stand. That while Donald Trump might be saying he's against bad trade deals, you know, the guy has made billions and billions of dollars offshoring work for over 40 years. Donald Trump says that he's with veterans. Well, I just now gave you a backed up by facts and cited examples of how this man is not with veterans. He knows nothing about us.
Yeah, you know, as a veteran yourself, well, you know, the makeup of the military, and I often get into these arguments with folks going, you know, it's not all white working class people in the military. In fact, I would say minorities make up a substantial part of our military, Muslims,
especially and Latinos in recent years.
Right, and because we did a lot during the Bush years of encouraging people come here and promise them citizenship if they served and went to places like Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, and believe it or not, we've actually, not always followed through on those promises. Rick, you know this, but some of your listeners might not. About 2 months ago, I was in San Diego for a meeting and took a half day, rented a car, and drove across the border to Tijuana, Mexico, where I spent the day sitting in solidarity with at the Deported Veterans Support House. This is an institution that was started by a veteran who had been deported, who offers resources and support to the other hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other veterans who are deported every day. You ask about the two Democratic candidates. You know, I'm very, very happy to say that through all of the nasty rhetoric we're hearing from Trump and the other Republican candidates who have already dropped out, you know, we're hearing something entirely different on the other side. You know, we've heard both Secretary Clinton and Senator Sanders repeatedly say that they want to see a strong VA, a fully funded VA, a fully staffed VA, and under no circumstances do they want to see a privatized VA. Additionally, you know, both Secretary Clinton and Senator Sanders, these are people who co-sponsored and pushed for things like the 21st Century GI Bill. You know, these are people who have stood with veterans for real, not standing with veterans by having some silly magnet on their car, not standing with veterans for a photo op or a campaign commercial, but trying to work to get veterans what veterans need most, and that is a job that allows them to live with dignity. That is access to the quality health care we earned, and that's health care that's delivered through a strong VA. And I have to say, when it comes to veteran issues, you really have, in Senator Sanders and Secretary Clinton, two people who are singing out of the same hymnal.
But here's the thing, just recently I had AFGE President J. David Cox on, and he said that
who's also the chair of the Union Veterans Council.
Okay, and he said, look, the VA has like 45,000 positions nationwide that are being left unfilled because you've got Republicans who are doing everything they can do to cause a crisis so that they can, eventually privatize the VA. And to me, it's one of those things we cannot, under any circumstances, allow to happen.
No, and I'll tell you, there's multiple reasons that we cannot allow this to happen. And this is an issue, Rick, that affects every single one of your listeners. So the number one reason we can't allow the VA to become privatized is that's because a privatized VA would be a VA that gives worse care to veterans. The VA, year in and year out, is rated, whether that's by the RAND Corporation or any of these other groups, as providing a higher level of care than the private sector. The VA is very unique in the fact that it provides quality, integrated care that's designed specifically for veterans. It's nothing, it's not uncommon at a VA hospital to see a room full of people who are amputees. Now, they're equipped for that. A private hospital isn't equipped for that. A private hospital isn't equipped to take care of people with traumatic brain injury, equipped to take care of people who are dealing with post-traumatic stress, and also not equipped to provide people with holistic care. Look, if I walk into the VA tomorrow and I say, hey, doc, my knee hurts, and, while I'm here, my elbow's bothering me. Well, you know what they do, Rick? They check out my elbow. Now, if I go to a private hospital for my knee and I say, well, I'm here, doc, my elbow hurts, they say, well, I'm sorry, son, you're going to have to go reschedule a new appointment for us to take a look at that elbow.
You're absolutely right.
Now, the other important thing for people to think about is the VA is the closest thing we have in this country to a single provider health care system. And those on the right know that, and everybody should know that. And the VA is wildly popular among actual veterans.
Absolutely.
People who actually go to the VA and rely on the VA actually really like the VA. And the more and more people who see that, this single provider system works and works well, that sort of makes other people think, well, why can't this work for everybody?
I'm right there with you.
When I talk about how...
And at the end of it, what we need to do is we need to be pushing that, because it is a universal healthcare system, and it's something that I've often said we should be emulating as a country. So, last question here then, in looking at the presidential candidates on both sides, from a veteran's perspective, especially when you take the VA into account, who wants to privatize it? Who wants to make it stronger? Where are you at?
Oh, Donald Trump has said he wants to privatize the VA.
There it is. It doesn't get any simpler than that.
And in a recent poll I read in Military Times actually said that 58% of registered voters who are veterans said they would oppose the candidacy of anyone who supported privatizing the VA. So, Donald, go ahead and keep talking that.
Wrong side of that issue. Again, unionveterans.org, the website. Will Fisher, the executive director. Will, thanks for taking time for us. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Brother Rick.
Always good to talk to you. Will Fisher, Executive Director, Union Veterans Council, unionveterans.org. We've got a link at thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Not right wing, just right. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1852. It was the last day of a 3-day convention held in Cincinnati, Ohio. Printers who worked for newspapers and other publications from 14 cities had converged to decide if they wanted to form a union. The printers had first met on the question of starting a union 2 years before in New York City. Now they were ready, and with a vote, the National Typographical Union was born. The very first action of the new union was to denounce Sunday workdays. Only one person cast his vote against the motion. The printers would play a leadership role in the U.S. labor movement. Printers were located in major cities across the U.S. Even more importantly, the union's members often worked for newspapers and had a skill set that could help get the word out about union news and actions. 17 years later, the organization changed its name to the International Typographical Union in recognition of new Canadian locals that joined. That same year, the union decided to let women into its ranks. This made it one of the earliest unions to do so. In 1870, Augusta Lewis was elected as corresponding secretary. She became the first female officer of a nationwide union. The ITU was known to be a very democratic union with strong locals. As printing technology changed, the union faced many challenges. Computers dramatically transformed the work of printing. These technology changes reduced the numbers and strength of the union. In 1986, the ITU merged with the Communication Workers of America. One of the ITU's most famous members was author Mark Twain, who joined the Typographical Union as a young man and proudly held his union card for the rest of his life. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
This is the Media Matters Minute. I'm John Kerr. Conservative media figures had public meltdowns after Donald Trump won the Indiana primary and Ted Cruz suspended his campaign. Listen to Fox News contributor and conservative syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer on The O'Reilly Factor.
I have no idea what the so-called establishment, if it exists, is thinking. I can tell you what I'm thinking. Do I look angry?
No. You look very mellow tonight, Charles. But I think you're tired.
Let's put it as I am resigned. I'm realistic.
Former Breitbart news editor at large Ben Shapiro tweeted, quote, Fox News just called Indiana. Conservatives just called America. And Fox News contributor and prominent conservative media figure Eric Erickson tweeted, quote, I don't want to congratulate Hillary Clinton on winning the presidency tonight, but she just did. These are just some of the many conservative commentators who declared that the impending Trump nomination signaled an inevitable loss for Republicans in the general election and the end of the Republican Party. For more on this and other stories, please visit MediaMatters.org.
Officially in love with Michelle Bachmann, even if she's batshit crazy. Rick Smith.
It's all brand new. I'm crazy for you, and you know it's true. Yeah, I'm crazy for you.
Well, more insanity out of the Christian Duger Cult Foundation, if you will. Evidently, one of the Duger cult founders is planning a big retreat. Yes, and I do think that the Dugers, I think they are cult members, and I think that whole Quiverful movement is nothing but an insane cult. Yes, mark it down. I actually said it. But you've got these crazy people, and the guy's name is Vaughn Ullman. He is the patriarch of the Quiverful movement. He is now putting a retreat together. And you can look at the website yourself, letthemmarry.org. Make sure you take a look at it, letthemmarry.org. If you've got your daughter that you want to basically sell into marriage, that's where you're going to go. It's a 3-day, quote-unquote, networking opportunity for you to find similarly delusional zealots who believe that the man is the head of the household and wives should be silent, submissive, baby-making machines, and that children, sheltered, isolated, indoctrinated, and then, as they get a little bit older, 12 or so, you push them off into marriage. And yes, I did say 12, because as I was looking at the website, and you can go check yourself, letthemmarry.org, under the frequently asked questions category, they asked about young marriages. And the Ullman site says, quote, and you can't make this up, John Calvin defines the flower of her age, 1 Corinthians 7:36, as from 12 to 20 years of age. Likewise, Ullman writes, John Gill defines it as, quote, one of 12 years and a half old. And Martin Luther says a young man should marry at the age of 20, at the latest, a young woman at 15 to 18. Ullman writes, we do not endorse marriages as young as 12. Our position is that for a woman, the youth, here it is, number 1, the youth ready for marriage has breasts. A woman who is to be married is one who has breasts which signal her readiness for marriage, and breasts who promise enjoyment for her husband. I am not making this up. He writes, we believe that breasts here stand as a symbol for all forms of full secondary sexual characteristics. I am not making this up. You can find it yourself at letthemmarry.org. Look at the frequently asked questions. Number 2, if that wasn't bad enough, if 1 wasn't bad enough, number 2, the youth ready for marriage is ready to bear children. Unlike modern society, Scripture sees the woman as a bearer, nurser, and raiser of children. The young woman is the woman whose body is physically ready for these things, physically mature enough to handle them without damage. Not me. This is crazy guy, cult leader. The youth ready for marriage is one who is ready for sexual intercourse, sexually and emotionally. Her desire is for her husband, and she is ready to rejoice in him physically. Sick. Yes. Sadistic? Yeah. Crazy? Yeah. Insane? Mm-hmm. Lots of that. So who can give the children away? Because here's the part that women should also be very freaked out by. And understand, this quiverful movement is about keeping women barefoot, pregnant, submissive, and pregnant every 10 months. So, like the Dugars with 19 and counting, you're just banging out a unit every 10, 12 months. So you don't have time to get a job. You don't have time for other endeavors other than raising children. The focus of your life is right there. So you have to be dependent on the man. And as a father of 2 daughters, in no way, shape, or form do I ever want my daughters that dependent on somebody who's crazy. Just kind of a thought. But they go into, as a father, Scripture speaks of the father of the son taking a wife for his son, and the father of the bride giving her to her husband. He writes, it gives example after example of young women being given to young men without the young women ever being consulted, and often in some of the most godly marriages in the Scripture, the young man is not consulted. Some use the idea of consent to deny the very relevance of the action of their authorities to bind them in covenant, as if the covenant was of no effect whatsoever, and all that mattered is what the person themselves decided. Others consider a covenant to be something substantial, but that is not really binding, and the person themselves consents. What they're saying is, look, once mom and dad says this, or once dad says this is who you're going to marry, well, you know what? This is what you're going to marry. And you ask about the price. What is the price? Why is it important? Wouldn't a bride price be like selling your daughter? He writes, a bride price is anything paid or given by the man and his representative at the time of the brothel or receiving of his bride. He writes, Scripture certainly teaches us about it, but it is not mandated, however, except in the case of a couple of laws. He writes, the law concerning bride price, Exodus 22:16 through 17, indicates that part of the punishment for fornication with an unbrotheled woman is the payment of a standard bride price for virgins, indicating that the bride price was a normal part of the marriage process. The bride price plays a significant function. It shows the woman's value, and the point isn't that the father gets the money, but that he keeps it for his daughter if her husband should ever abandon her. There you go. So you're going to give dad some money just in case your husband kicks off. I don't want to go through the rest of it. Honestly and truthfully, there is so much more. I could spend a day on how much insanity is on this website. I can only say rational, sane, thoughtful, considerate people, you have to see how crazy of a nation we are becoming. And we're doing it in the name of God and religion. Much like the idiot who said, I'm not doing no socialist because God told me to run. This kind of insanity. And look, I believe in God. We do the church thing. We go, all of that stuff. I'm just not this crazy. And please, if this is the kind of God that I have to worship or the kind of Scripture that I have to believe in, leave me out. Because this is some sick stuff. And these are some people who need to be dealt with. But the sad reality is we give them a TV show and people idolize these people, these freaks. Scary, scary stuff. I'll take a quick break. Right back so I can regain even my sanity just from reading that nonsense. Right back.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labor News Update recorded on Thursday, May 5th, 2016. I'm Mark Boulanger.
We've got some tough times ahead of us, and we've had a tough year, but look at what we've achieved together. Fighting this government's unfair and undemocratic trade union bill, winning real concessions from them through hard lobbying, hard campaigning.
That is Frances O'Grady, the General Secretary of the British Trades Union Congress. The TUC has been fighting the introduction of an anti-union piece of legislation introduced by the country's right-wing government. The legislation, called the Trade Union Bill, has now been enacted and put into law. Because of an extensive lobbying campaign by the TUC, especially in the upper unelected House of Lords, the bill has become law after many amendments. A section cancelling the automatic collection of union dues by employers has been removed. A refusal to allow online balloting for strike votes will now go to an independent investigation. And severe restrictions on picket line activities, such as demanding the identity of picketers, are no longer in the legislation. However, the TUC points out that the bill is still an odious attack on the rights of working people and their unions. For example, the trade union bill still includes a double threshold stipulation for strike votes in as yet undefined important parts of the public sector. That means unions will have to get 50% of the membership voting and then 40% of that amount in favor of strike action. Picket line captains will still have to be identified to the police. This identification is especially worrisome given the number of times workers have been blacklisted by employers such as construction companies. Domestic workers, especially migrant domestic workers, often find themselves exploited and abused by their employers. But there is a way to build protection for the workers. Radio Labor senior correspondent C. Marie Ainsborough has a report.
The International Labour Organization is calling on countries to improve the conditions of domestic workers by adopting an international law which would give them the same rights as other workers in the country. There are about 11 million domestic workers in the world. About 75% of these workers are women. Many of them are migrant workers who have left their homes looking for decent work. According to labor leaders, labor laws protecting domestic workers are needed because they are often monetarily and sexually exploited by employers, denied rights such as time off, refused health benefits, and given heavy, almost undoable workloads. Bish Pugh Yu is a co-founder of the Hong Kong Domestic Workers Union.
The domestic workers are facing difficult times, so normally the employers think you can do a magic, you can do a lot of work within a few hours. So they have a lot of back pain, skin problems.
Elizabeth Tang is the Secretary General of the International Domestic Workers Federation.
I also asked them this question, where do you find the strength? It's so hard. And then they said, yes, but we must keep working. We must try our best. What can I say? You know, they are in far worse situation. And then they tell me, we have to work hard. We must try. I must do the same.
The International Domestic Workers Federation, the IDWF, is a global union federation. It has 50 affiliated unions, associations, and workers' co-ops operating in 43 countries. It has set itself an ambitious agenda to improve the wages and working conditions of domestic workers. Myrtle Witbooi is the president of the IDWF.
So our task for the next 5 years is to unite domestic workers' organizations, to form domestic workers' organizations, and to make sure that each one know their rights and that exploitation will stop.
The international law that the Domestic Workers Federation wants to see adopted by countries is ILO Convention 189. The ILO is the UN agency which represents national labor centers at the world level. If adopted by a country, the ILO Convention becomes part of the national legal structure. This is C. Marie Ainsborough reporting for Radio Labor.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
Hide them in the cabinet I keep them in a jar. For emergencies, you know I keep them in the glove compartment of my car, and I can't live without them. They get me high and I can get on booze. I got them Oreo cream sandwiches, chocolate covered cream filled good.
Well, you're going to have to live without them, especially now that a good number of the production jobs that make those Oreos are moving to Mexico. And it just blows my mind that there. And look, I guess I'm happy to see that there has been a major backlash of people going, "Hey, not going to do it." Even a couple of presidential candidates weighing in on it. Even Donald Trump. And like I've been saying, a squirrel finds a nut occasionally. Here, he at least found something of a nut to say, you know what, this is bad for the country. Now, what he would do about it, I have no idea. But the fact is, we're still going to lose those jobs. And the question is, how do we fight back? How do we make this company pay? Which is why I've asked Ronald Baker, Strategic Campaign Coordinator with the BCT GM, to come talk to us about what's going on out in Chicago with Mondelez and Nabisco as they're moving those jobs out of the country. Ronald, thanks for taking time for us.
Hi, Rick. How you doing?
I'm good. So tell me, where are we? What's been going on?
Well, there's a lot of things that have been going on late. Since the last time that we talked here, we've got several things that have happened. One thing, on May the 6th, the AFL-CIO endorsed, the National AFL-CIO endorsed the Mexican-made products of a boycott of Mondelez Nabisco's Mexican-made products. So 12.5 million members and their families, we can now engage in the efforts we started on March the 23rd. In addition to that, we filed on the beginning of April a NAALC, which is the cooperation letter under NAFTA with the U.S. Department of Labor with respect to our belief that Mondelez had created a company-oriented union along with the Mexican government in order to avert some labor standards that fell under NAFTA in order to get around the NAFTA free trade agreement. So a number of things have happened, and right now we've created a group called the Nabisco 600, which laid off people from the plant that are now working in Chicago educating people about the boycott, but we're going to be, after the 18th of May, we're going to hit the East Coast and West Coast and central parts of the United States, talking to folks and pushing the agenda forward.
Good stuff. I mean, at the end of this, there's got to be some retribution. There's got to be something that this company pays for leaving behind 600 workers in a community there in Chicago. There's got to be something.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, we do believe that that the boycott will catch on. That already has. I mean, our membership across the country, with the assistance of many other groups. I was just in Detroit yesterday talking to the Alliance for Retired Americans in Detroit, with a couple hundred people in the room. We've been with the auto workers. We've been with the teachers' unions. We've been with a number of unions and with Jobs with Justice in Chicago. So, I mean, we're passing the word, and people are very, very interested. I mean, the message that, basically putting out there, listen, there's only one group of people that you can count on to fight for you when it comes to your jobs and your jobs leaving this country. It doesn't happen to be politicians, and it doesn't happen to be companies that are going to side with you. It happens to be you, the consumer, that can control the destiny of like what these corporations do as far as their forward-looking game plan on how they treat workers in this country.
No, I'm right there with you, and a big part of this is checking the label. I've been saying that for years, and I mean, I guess it's because I grew up, back in the '70s, and I remember that Union Label song that they used to put on TV all the time. I don't know when that stopped, but to me, I still, when we buy bread, when we buy anything, we flip it over, see if there's a Union Label on it, and then see where it's made. Because as a consumer, and you're so right on this, as a consumer, we have power to make sure and to mandate that what we buy is made here.
Absolutely. And, people, when you tell people, I mean, they actually. I think that they've known it, but that needs to be reinforced with them. That even though that this country only has 5% of the world's population, it consumes 20+% of the world's produced goods, and there is no corporation out there, regardless of the game plan, that can survive without the American consumer actually supporting them. And you know what I've told the group yesterday in Detroit was this. I mean, you don't continue to feed the monster that's stalking you and your family every day. And by going and not checking the labels and providing this company with the fuel, cash fuel to continue this ongoing legacy of seeking the lowest common denominator, you're actually doing a disservice to you, yourself, your community, and the future in this country.
And the other part of this is the job you may save might be your own.
Yeah, and I tell you, Rick, when NAFTA first came out, it was sold as we were going to buy things from Mexico tariff free, and the Mexican workers were going to be able to buy televisions and Cadillacs and everything made in the United States. Well, even back then, labor unions were saying, wait a minute, if you have a wage disparity from country to country, the bottom line to it is that they're not going to be able to afford to buy what we make, and the jobs are going to go south, and we're going to end up buying what they make for us that we usually made for ourselves. And that's exactly what happened. 60,000 plants closed, 1 million jobs left the United States, and the futures of families went with it. But we also stress too that this boycott with Nabisco Mexican-made products is not it's no slight against the Mexican worker, because this company is not only exploiting people in this country by actually denying them the due course of respect for the past work that they've done, but they're disrespecting the people across the border by taking advantage of the low wages that they can force upon them.
Exactly, and also drive their wages down. And one of the things that I've often said about NAFTA is, we were told it was going to be this great leveling off, and Ross Perot used to do the big, the chart half hours at night, talking about how it was going to be. And the one thing that he wasn't right on is he thought there would be a leveling off, that the Mexican wages would come up as ours went down. The reality is both of ours have gone down. We've both become more desperate.
That's right. Well, we've in the last week or so, actually the last 3 weeks, locals across the country have been going to Walmart superstores as well as big box stores, checking the inventory on the shelf, and then going back to the manager and saying, look, we found X% or whatever of stock on your shelf. And we want you to know that, we're trying to preserve U.S. jobs. Preserving U.S. jobs means good income for people that actually live here, which means they can frequent the store that you manage and have some disposable income to spend on things that they wouldn't ordinarily spend those things on. A lot of managers understand it, and we basically told them that we'll be back, and if they don't change the vendors on the products or where the stock comes from, that we'll be notifying people that to not buy Mexican-made products that they're hosting at their stores. So, we've been out and about doing that all across the country, north, south, east, and west.
No, good for you. But at the end of the day, looking at Walmart, since you brought them up, they're one of the main drivers of outsourcing jobs in this country, and they're just the landscape is littered with skeletons and corpses of American manufacturing companies that have been forced to outsource jobs or put in a position by companies like Walmart that they end up moving. So I don't know if there's a lot of hope there, but I like the idea of making sure that they know that their customers may not come around.
Yeah, and we're certainly not going to stop there. That's for sure. But we do. We have seen one thing. As we all know. There's been a change in the winds when it comes to politics, and I got to tell you, there's been a change in the winds when it comes to what the American people or the American consumer believes is to be appropriate. In the past, when NAFTA first started, maybe one family out of 100 was impacted. So you had that just that small fraction. But in 20 years and 1 million jobs gone, 60,000 factories closed. people not only have been impacted directly, but if they haven't, they have had sons, they've had daughters, they've had other relatives that have been. And it's not as though this is this outsourcing or this rush to the bottom is like a long distance type nightmare. People live with this every single day in their immediate family, and that's what the difference is today. I believe, Rick.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go back a second. How many workers have lost their job to this point, and what's happening to them?
Well, what's happening out there right now? They've laid off as of March the 23rd. 277 people were let go. Now, and they about a week after that, they gave another notice that another 90 were going to leave. Now, I'm going to tell you this. They let all these people go out the door, but what has happened as a result of that, the people that are left inside there, they have to force over at about twice the rate that they've ever forced people to stay over into shifts because of lack of manpower than they ever had before. So, quite frankly, I mean, they let too many go to begin with based on what they want to do. The other thing, Rick, that I think we talked about before, but we haven't, it's worth noting, is the company not only wants to outsource these jobs and send these jobs south, but they also have demanded at the bargaining table that they exit. The company wants to exit the defined benefit pension plan, which they were involved with 60 years ago as one of the founding companies that was involved with that, and exchange it for a 401k.
Yeah, nothing surprising there. But here's the question I have then. All of these measures, outsourcing jobs to cut costs,
$1 billion worth of revenue, and they, of course, they always strive, as every company does, to increase their margins or whatever. But no, I mean they're not claiming financial distress or anything like that. They just want to make more because they believe it's due to them. Even in a down year, the CEO last year, when they just posted they made $19 million. And the top three officers of the corporation made $36.7 million collectively. So, no, they're not struggling. This, I said it before, I'll say it again. This company is one of many multinational global corporations, but this one they're nothing more than social financial scavengers that look for resources. It's a shame, but if you look at it, the United States of America and its people have probably more disposable income than anywhere else in the world, and they're willing to just use that as they want you to be part of the consumption part, but not part of the production part. So they want to take the patient and put the patient near death. Just don't kill the patient so they can continue to
bleed it dry,
participate.
Continue to bleed it dry. So last question I've got for you. I know we talked about checking the label, but what else can we do beyond the power of our dollar? And I highly suggest that you flip over the bag, look where it's made. If it says Mexico, put it back.
Leave it on the shelf. And over time, if there's no market for a product from Mexico, then there's no need for the plant to run in Mexico. But the other thing that can be done, we're putting this tour out. And it's the Nabisco 600 tour. We invite organizations, social organizations, to actually contact us so we can set up have team members come and explain to your group. We set up an email address that's specific for scheduling, which is Nabisco600 at bctgm.org. That's Nabisco600 at bctgm.org. If you send us an email, tell us that you're interested, we'll work out a schedule with you.
We'll make sure we get a link at thericksmithshow.com so folks can take advantage of that. bctgm.com, Nabisco600 at bctgm.com. We'll make sure we get that link. Ron, it's always great talking with you. I appreciate you taking time, giving us an update. And as this continues, we want you to come back and keep us informed.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thanks for everything you guys have all done in the past. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, Ron Baker, Strategic Campaign Coordinator with the BCTGM. Again, you want to check out the website they've got, fightforamericanjobs.org. We'll get a link at thericksmithshow.com as well. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
I don't want to lose. refill cookie. Bill by Nabisco ain't no rookie. Next best thing to Nookie Blue.
No one likes a smart aleck, or a stupid one for that matter. A really stupid one is called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which masquerades as an educational group that simply assists state officials with policy research. In fact, it is a corporate-financed, far-right-wing political front group that writes and aggressively pushes anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-environmental, anti-immigrant, anti-public, and other extremist anti-the-people legislative proposals. ALEC's operatives take these cookie-cutter bills from state capital to state capital, getting Republican governors and key legislators to introduce them. Then, ALEC helps organize AstroTurf campaigns to ram such ugliness into law. Governor Scott Walker's repressive agenda in Wisconsin is an ALEC product. So is Arizona's war on Latinos, as is Florida's murderous stand-your-ground, shoot-'em-up law. However, all of this led ALEC to get stupid. Its leaders got to thinking they were bulletproof, that they could shove this stuff down people's throats all across the country and the people would just accept it. Wrong. In fact, stupidly arrogant. Not only have people rebelled, they've also organized and mobilized. Groups like Center for Media and Democracy, Color of Change, Common Cause, Occupy Wall Street, and People for the American Way have rallied grassroots people to hit ALEC where it really hurts, its pocketbook. Suddenly, key corporate sponsors were hearing from outraged citizens and customers, and company after company is now withdrawing their sponsorship. Among those recently jumping off the ALEC bandwagon are Coca-Cola, Kraft Foods, Mars, McDonald's, PepsiCo, and Wendy's. This is Jim Hightower saying, to connect with these various efforts, go to alecexposed.org. That's ALEC exposed.org.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. British voters will decide in June whether to remain in the European Union. Polling indicates a very close referendum. Prime Minister David Cameron spent Wednesday at Parliament facing down his critics and defending why Britain should remain in the European Union. To do that, he continued an argument made by President Obama on a recent visit, warning that leaving the EU would cause trade deals to take much longer to negotiate.
I think the evidence is that we sign better trade deals, and I think increasingly more quickly from inside the EU.
If Britain left the EU, Cameron said the country would be right back at EU headquarters, banging down the door to negotiate a trade deal with Britain's largest trading partner.
Do we really want our trading relationship with this very important, the most important trading partner we have, do we want it to be on the basis of being a rule taker, someone who has no say over the rules, and yet is paying into the system, as Norway does, and accepting free movement of people? That is like a much worse deal than we have now. So why would we want that?
Cameron also said the EU offers greater security protection than even he realized when he became Prime Minister.
I think I used to believe, NATO, Five Eyes, partnership with America, police, intelligence services, that is how we deliver security. Europe's got nothing to do with security. I think I probably would have argued 5 or 10 years ago. There's no doubt in my mind that it has changed.
Of course, after stressing all the benefits of the EU, one of Cameron's critics implied that all those great things about the EU must mean he was neglecting his duties to Britain, and he asked what % of Cameron's day was spent on EU business. In quintessentially un-American fashion, Cameron took the bait.
I would estimate probably 15%.
For more global news headlines, visit talkmedianews.com.
It's going to be interesting the next couple of days as the Republican establishment comes to the reality that the Donald is their horse. And look, they've got to be there have been reports that they're just freaking out, that they have no idea what to do, that people are either jumping ship or getting in line. Well, it looks like one of Ted Cruz's biggest financial backers, a guy who gave Ted about $10 million into his super PAC, has now said he's a Trump supporter full and full, and he's excited about the voters that the Donald has turned up. His name's Toby Negebauer. He is a wealthy energy investor, and he's getting online. And it'll be interesting to see how many of those super donors who were kind of sitting out with the Koch brothers come around, think that maybe they can salvage something. That's going to be interesting to see. Evidently, the Bushes have decided that they're not going to endorse. This is George H.W. Bush says he plans to stand silent over the race, as does Bush 43. The 41 and 43 who say not so much. Bush 41, who enthusiastically endorsed every Republican nominee over the past 5 election cycles, said he's going to be staying out of this one. He does not have plans to endorse at all, according to their spokesman. The spokesperson said at the age of 91, President Bush is retired from politics. He came out of retirement to do a few things for Jeb, but those were the exceptions that proved the rule. Now, 43 says he doesn't plan to participate in or comment on the presidential campaign, according to his personal aide. Is this the Bush dynasty taking their ball and going home? Or is this them going, you know what, this guy's really insane? I'm thinking a little bit of both. Really, I'm thinking a little bit of both. But there you go. So some folks coming around, some not so much. It will be interesting, though, to see where the Wall Street money goes. Because, I was having this conversation last night on, what exactly does Trump stand for? And the person I was talking to is kind of he's one of those center people where, he's on nobody's side. And he's at this point, and he's one of the few people who said, I don't really know who I'm going to vote for in November. And I'm fortunate to have friends who are like that, because it kind of gives me a different perspective. Because, having watched this stuff every day, day in and day out, and kind of being glued to it, I know what each person says, and I know where the positions are. This guy's like, I don't really care. There are days I wish I could do that. Really. There are days I wish I go, I don't really care. It's going to happen. Whatever. I wish I was that kind of surfer dude, kind of just laid back. But he's like, I look at Trump and, he's what he is. He's a reality star, and his fame has gotten him this far. I don't really know what he stands for. I've heard him say a couple things this way or that way, and I don't really have an opinion of him. I'm going, really? And the answer is yeah. And on the other side, the same thing. He says he'll decide a couple weeks before the election, and that's how he does it. There's part of me that thinks that might not be a bad idea, because maybe we would get away from some of this insanity. Like a tow truck driver. Can you tell I'm fixated on that? Can you tell I'm really stuck and angry and ticked off that a tow truck driver would leave someone stranded on the side of the road? This should be the end of his business. I mean, honestly and truthfully, should be the end of it. Frustrating. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. Hour 3 coming up. If your station doesn't pick up Hour 3, you can get it at thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to thericksmithshow.com. If you've missed any portion of the program, you can download the podcast at thericksmithshow.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. May 4th was a national day of action to reclaim public schools in 80 cities nationwide. The Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools, consisting of more than 100 community and labor organizations, organized the day of rallies, marches, and walk-ins for schools all our children deserve. It's a movement to defend public schools against privatization, attacks on teacher unions, and the erosion of public school budgets to feed private charter schools. Arlene Inoue is treasurer of the United Teachers of Los Angeles.
We had more than 150 public schools in the Los Angeles Unified School District participate, and we know that we're joined by tens of thousands of our counterparts in around 80 cities in all regions of the country who are staging a series of demands that we want resources for our sustainable public community schools.
The Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools wants public schools that are well-funded and immune from corporate agendas, where all students can get equal high-quality educations and where educator and community voices are respected.
In Los Angeles, we have the Broad and Walmart Foundation saying in a report that their intention is to take out half of our public schools and replace them with unregulated charter schools. And we feel strongly about this, and we will continue to fight against the billionaires. And they may have all the money, but we do have a lot of people who are rallying around our public schools.
Workers are filing a class action lawsuit against the 16-store Dunkin' Donuts franchise in downtown Chicago. That lawsuit was announced Wednesday. The suit alleges wage theft and unsafe conditions at those stores. The Farm Labor Organizing Committee says the tobacco industry is turning a blind eye to child labor and dangerous working conditions in America's tobacco fields. Flock is protesting at the Reynolds American shareholders meeting Thursday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, demanding that Reynolds American humanize these working conditions and give workers a voice on the job. Flock's Justin Flores says that farm workers will take their message directly to Reynolds American inside the shareholders meeting and also rally outside.
We're going to have 40 people, majority of whom are young farm workers themselves and young Flock members that are there to speak about their experiences, talk about the wage theft, retaliation, and all the problems that are really just all throughout the Reynolds supply chain. Farm workers from different states, people from all over the place coming together in Winston-Salem and try to get the word out about what's happening so that Reynolds American can't keep hiding the facts from the public.
Workers Independent News is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, online at teamster.org, and by the American Federation of Government Employees, online at afge.org.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. As you know, I've said numerous times, and I make it no secret, 11 years ago, it was Labor Day 2005. Bernie Sanders was one of the first guests I had on this program, one of the first interviews I did when I began the little program here. And to be honest, and I've said this 1,000 times, he is the same guy he was 11 years ago. I've got friends who live in Vermont say, he's the same guy he was 25 or 30 years ago. The speeches he's giving today, to them in Vermont, kind of old hat. But for the rest of us kind of discovering this and going, man, he's right. He's been the guy who's been right all along on trade issues, on employment, on economics, on getting people back to work, which is why I think, right now, he's got a lot of supporters. So when a listener sent me an email saying, hey, there's going to be a movie coming out, Burn the Movie, I said, we got to talk to the guy who's doing it, which is why we've asked Jay Matthews. He's the executive producer of Burn the Movie to come talk with us. Jay, thanks for taking time.
Hey, thank you so much.
So what made you jump into the middle of this?
Well, I wanted to know more about him myself. I've been in politics for the last 7 years. I've been in all kinds of positions, and I really like to know more about who my candidate that I support is personally, where they come from, where their values were established, and how they became the person that's asking for my support today. I think the 2008 Barack Obama elections are really cemented that idea in me, that I need to be more concerned about who the candidate is personally And I wanted to know more. And while there's a lot of information out there online, there's Wikipedia pages, there's tons of information on his website, it's still a lot of information to digest and aggregate into a strong story. And I had some friends in the film industry, and I approached them with the idea of making a Bernie Sanders documentary that wouldn't be a commercial. That's something that's educational. That's something that really informs people about who he is as a person, where he comes from, and how he got to be who he is.
Yeah.
And they, they're professional documentary filmmakers, and they loved the idea. And so that's kind of how it all came about. And that was I think that was about 2 months ago.
Wow.
About 2 months ago, we came together and just have been nonstop working on this project to release it on the 27th.
Well, good for you. I mean, that's a quick turnaround. Because, I spent a little bit of time at your website last night, burnthemovie.com. We've got a link at thericksmithshow.com. Just click on Jay Matthews' name. I spent some time there, and I'm watching this footage. Some of it I've seen, but most of it I had not. And, he's talking the same issues today that he was talking back during the Jesse Jackson campaign. I think it was 88 or 92? 88, I think it was.
I'm not sure the year.
Oh, actually, it was 84 when he ran against Dukakis.
Sure.
That's right. No, but you go back and you were talking back into the 80s and some even into the 70s, and it's the exact same speeches he's given today because, as I said in the intro, he's been right on these issues. It's just that the mainstream's kind of had completely moved away from it.
Yeah, and I think that if you go to the website and you watch the sneak peek that we have up, that's a real condensed version of some of the things that you're going to be seeing in the film. And, it's interesting working on this project because I am like most people. I'm seeing the videos for the first time once they've been produced. So I saw that before we released it, maybe 2 days before we released it. And what was really interesting while I was watching it was I kept saying to myself, man, if I had my eyes closed right now, I would never know that this spanned about 30 years. Because the video that we have up, it jumps from time point, and it's such a consistent message that I think it's really interesting. I mean, if you were to play it over the radio, people would never guess that what we had playing for them was a bunch of different clips spanning that many years, and that it's really cool to see how he really speaks for himself. And I think that one of the most common things that we're getting from people is, where was this a year ago? Why didn't this happen sooner? I myself agree. I'm shocked that it hasn't happened sooner. But I think that the funny thing is that there is a need for this type of medium to be able to tell a story because there are so many different types of people that digest information differently. But when you are looking at everything, if you're doing your own research, what you're seeing is exactly the same as it's always been. It's so consistent that it really does speak for itself.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about inequality, and there's one of the videos where he's surrounded by a bunch of children that particularly struck me, and he's talking to the one kid saying, you can do anything you want. If you tell yourself you're stupid, you're going to be stupid, but if you tell yourself I can do things, and it really was like kind of that, that kind of fatherly advice, and kind of the vibe I get from him.
I love that clip. That clip really got me too, because I really think that speaks to him as a person, as to who he is and how he engages with the world. I don't think that he views anyone as a stupid person or as someone that's so dumb that they can't get involved or do anything or make a difference. He doesn't believe that about anyone. And I think that might even be, I'm just speculating, that some people have said that, he's kind of grumpy or kind of grouchy. Well, when you're dealing with someone who doesn't think you're an idiot and you're probably not saying the smartest things, they're not, it's hard for someone who doesn't think someone's stupid to deal with that, to see someone being so dumb when they're not. And I think that he feels that way about everyone. And that's why he talks to everyone the same way. He's so consistent. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can testify
He's really
to that.
An amazing person.
I can testify to that. I've had him on the show numerous times, and I've seen him in person numerous times, and he's always the same guy. I got to tell you though, Jay, I wish you'd have come up with this idea months and months ago when it really could have had some impact. Have you had any contact with Sanders and the campaign about this idea? Because
no, we haven't. We've sent our press releases and stuff in, and let them know, like, but we haven't had any direct contact whatsoever. I mean, they're busy running a presidential campaign.
Sure.
That's a pretty intense endeavor.
Oh, yeah.
They've got a lot of things going on, but we haven't had communication with them, and that's okay for us. Like, at one point we were really hoping that we would be able to get an interview with him personally, but we really don't need that, because he has so much historical footage and so much that, what is he going to say new to us?
Right. No, I mean, from my perspective,
yeah.
Jay, I would rather you not have contact with the campaign, because then it would seem like this is campaign, propaganda.
Exactly.
The fact that
and
you
that's
haven't
not
had
what
it.
this is going to be at all. We are, and this is why I approached my friends in the film industry as opposed to approaching a political group that does this kind of thing, because this is not going to be a commercial for Bernie Sanders. This is not going to be a kumbaya kind of thing for him. This is going to be an educational documentary piece, more like you would see on PBS. And it's meant to appeal not specifically to his fans. His fans are going to love the film because they're going to learn a lot about him that they didn't know. But this is meant for those people that don't know, are unsure, want to know who he is, want to know more about the candidates before they make a decision. And it's more for the people in the middle and the people who are undecided than it is for his fan base. We're hoping his fan base is going to help us get this story out. But we really are making this film so that way people can make a better decision about, a person before they make a decision in the ballot.
Yeah, good point.
Box.
May 27th.
We're going to be releasing it on the 27th, but we're also planning and working on getting it shown at the convention. We are in talks with a theater that's about 10 miles away from the convention, and they would love to show the film for free. And we're going to try and encourage, delegates and super delegates and anyone to come view this film. They'll be able to watch it in their homes. They'll be able to download it off the internet. And hopefully, if they're in Philadelphia and they want to have, get another chance to learn some more about him before they cast their vote, they can. And we're going to try and make that as easy as possible for people going forward.
That's outstanding because, to me, the idea of, maybe getting a hold of this film and holding little house parties or having some events around it, because this is the political season. And it
That's
just
the
seems
plan.
something that would be something worth doing.
That's the plan. And that's why we're releasing it for free. The thing is we are raising money to produce this film, but we're not raising money for profit. As soon as we have enough money to pay for the film, we're done taking donations. And then we're putting it on YouTube. We're putting it on Vimeo. We're going to allow people to download it, burn it to DVDs, give it to whomever they want, because what we're really trying to do is get this information out there. It's something that people need to know and are looking for and want. And we're not going to stop anyone from seeing it. And we are planning watch parties. We do have an event, a worldwide online watch party on our Facebook page. But we're encouraging and working with a lot of people, especially in the states that are going to be doing elections after the 27th, to hold public watch parties in parks and in movie theaters and in libraries and wherever they can in their homes, so that way people can get a chance to know more.
Yeah, I highly suggest people take a look at the website, burnthemovie.com, BERNthemovie.com. We've got a link at the ricksmithshow.com. Just click on Jay Matthews' name, take you right there. So, anything surprising as you're putting this together? Anything surprise you? Anything you learned? Anything that you want to share?
I think that
Yeah, I think we lost him.
You know what I mean?
No, I didn't hear you. You bleeped out. Can you say it again?
Oh, I said that it's probably the fact that it's so consistent that it's it's kind of scary. Like you don't see politicians like this. You don't see people in the political atmosphere that aren't manufactured, that are consistent in what it is that they're saying, and they never sway. Like I knew a little bit about him before I started this project, but the more I know about him now, it just makes it more firmly for me that I believe that he is the right choice for this country and for, going forward. And I think that that's probably the most surprising thing was I've never expected to find or see a political candidate like this before. And I don't like that. I think that that's not right that I had that belief, period. So I think it's really interesting. Oh, and I guess one other thing is that there are some people that believe he's an alien, which is really interesting.
Well, the hair kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
I guess, but I did stumble across a small group of people that are firmly believe that he's an alien.
That's how you got the bird to land, right?
Right, exactly. That explains it.
Well, we've got all kinds in this country, and the great thing is there are people like Sanders who are genuine and real. And to me, that's what the politics should be about. It shouldn't be about what I see on the Republican side, which is just meanness and hatred and all of the nastiness that's going on there. It should be about how do we make people's lives better. And I think that's what Sanders' message has been for a very long time. How do we make people's lives better? How do we make a better country?
Yeah, and honestly, I would love to watch a documentary film about every candidate before I make a decision during an election.
So there you go. You've got something to do.
Yeah, right. We'll see what we're doing next election cycle.
So again, the release date is May 27th. You're going to have a worldwide party.
20-some days away.
Yeah, it's closing in. Going to have a worldwide watch party on the Facebook page, right?
Yeah, we're going to be doing it on Facebook. We're also going to be having it on our website. And we're going to have it on YouTube as well, so people can watch it from wherever they want, and they will also be able to download the film and burn it to DVD if they want to hold watch parties in their local areas on that day or the weekend. Hold a fundraiser, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's free information. Do what you got to do and get it in front of the people that need to see it.
Beautiful stuff. And if folks wanted to throw you a couple of bucks, because, hey, this stuff does cost money to get produced and to get distributed and all that, how would we, what would we do?
So you would do that on the website. We are using Stripe. We accept PayPal. We have Bitcoin if you wanted to, but we're accepting payments through the website on burnthemovie.com. There's a green donate button underneath the sneak peek.
All right.
We're not affiliated with the campaign. We are not a nonprofit. We're not a PAC. So these donations are, they're going to help produce a film. Much like Kickstarter, only we're not on Kickstarter anymore.
All I can say is I cannot wait to see it. From the clips that I saw, I'm excited to see it. And on the 27th, I'll be one of the first folks there at burnthemovie.com to get my access to it. Jay, really great talking with you. Best of luck to you in this, and I'd love to have you come back and talk again after it's over and we find out what kind of response you got.
Thank you so much. Maybe I can bring the director on with me next time. She is the one who knows everything.
That would be fantastic. I look forward to it. Jay, thanks so much, man.
Great. Thank you, too. Have a great day.
You as well, Jay Matthew. Again, check out the site, burnthemovie.com. We've got a link at thericksmithshow.com. Just click on Jay Matthews' name. Take you right there. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931. That was the day that became known as the Battle of Harlan, or the Battle for Evarts. Harlan County, Kentucky was coal country. Miners worked long hours underground and faced dangerous and often deadly working conditions. If they attempted to form a union, they risked not only losing their jobs, but also getting evicted from their company housing. Despite this response, starting in the 1920s, the United Mine Workers of America began to make headway in organizing miners. In Harlan, the miners who dared organize were fired. They and their families were thrown out of their homes. The company brought in hired guns to enforce the evictions and to keep the union out of the mines. Union miners and these gun thugs met on the road outside of the town of Evarts. A gun battle broke out. 3 company men and 1 miner were killed. The governor of Kentucky once admitted, quote, "There exists a virtual reign of terror in Harlan County, financed in general by a group of coal mine operators in collusion with certain public officials. The victims of this reign of terror are the coal miners and their families." The Harlan County mine wars raged on for the next decade. In all, 13 miners would give their lives trying to bring a union to the Kentucky coal fields. It was one of the bloodiest struggles of the U.S. labor movement. Bloody Harlan earned its nickname.
They say in
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
This is the Media Matters Minute. I'm John Kerr. Conservative media figures had public meltdowns after Donald Trump won the Indiana primary and Ted Cruz suspended his campaign. Listen to Fox News contributor and conservative syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer on the O'Reilly Factor.
I have no idea what the so-called establishment, if it exists, is thinking. I can tell you what I'm thinking. Do I look angry?
No. You look very mellow tonight, Charles, but I think you're tired.
Let's put it as I am resigned. I'm realistic.
Former Breitbart news editor-at-large Ben Shapiro tweeted, quote, Fox News just called Indiana. Conservatives just called America. And Fox News contributor and prominent conservative media figure Eric Erickson tweeted, quote, I don't want to congratulate Hillary Clinton on winning the presidency tonight, but she just did. These are just some of the many conservative commentators who declared that the impending Trump nomination signaled an inevitable loss for Republicans in the general election and the end of the Republican Party. For more on this and other stories, please visit MediaMatters.org.
Chances are, when you took a shower this morning, an AFSCME member made sure that water was clean. When you drove to work, an AFSCME member maintained the road. When you rode an elevator, an AFSCME member inspected it. I'm David Philman, Executive Director of AFSCME Council 13, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. AFSCME members enforce regulations, keep prisoners behind bars, take care of patients, protect the environment, and more. The work isn't glamorous, the salaries aren't high, but AFSCME members serve the public in every aspect of our daily lives. Chances are, you'll never see that AFSCME member working in a sewage plant, diving underwater to repair a bridge, or answering a 911 call. But aren't you glad they do? For more information, visit AFSCME13.org. We are AFSCME. We make Pennsylvania happy!
Uncovering the con in conservatism. Rick Smith.
Well, I know that somewhere down inside they're just feeling small and scared. And they need to know that someone out there cares. Have you hugged a Republican today? Have you tried to spread your love to those who love the NRA? Though they might be quite reluctant, 'cause they'll wonder if you're gay. You should hug a Republican.
Yes, hug a Republican today. Maybe they'll stop being such angry, mean. I got to tell you, this story today's gotten a ton of emails from folks today talking about the tow truck driver. You can't bury your husband because it's a white-owned cemetery. The woman who beats her kids because, hey, the Bible told me to do it. And, of course, these crazy people with the LetThemMarry.org website. And, you know, what's interesting is I can't remember how long ago it was. It was a while ago. It's a couple of years now that I'm thinking about it. We had a woman come on who had at one point been part of that Quiverful movement. And she talked about how it's, they just completely take over a woman's life. And, you're pumping out a kid every 10 to 12 months. Nothing's yours. You make no decisions. You have no economic power. You have no ability to leave because now you've got all of these kids. And you look at this and you go, wow, how, what it basically is you're creating subcults. Each little household is its own little cult, part of a much larger cult. And we put it on TV so that other people could watch it. I mean, how screwed up are we as a society that we go, yeah, absolutely. Let's put the crazy people on TV so that we could be like them. I mean, there were some people who were just, in awe of the spectacle. And I know my wife was like, really? 19 kids? We got 3 and we're pulling our hair out. And I remember just going, back before I knew what that show was, back before I knew that they were part of this whole Christian army movement of, it's interesting to me because I just had this conversation with my uncle over the weekend, who said that the Muslims are all going to come here and they're going to populate in a certain area and they're going to have a bunch of kids and they're going to take over. And I said, isn't that exactly what Christians have done Isn't that exactly what these crazy people are doing? And he wanted no part of the understanding that it was even possible that we could have a Christian version of Sharia law. Look, the fact that this group is talking about taking their daughters to some networking opportunity so they can force them into getting married, and who knows, young marriages, anywhere from 12 to who knows. Don't you think that's just a little weird? And I highly suggest, go look at the website. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. And it's a lot of it. They are so in the kind of thing this is what bothers me with this. They are so in detailed, so in depth. There's so much here that, the amount of thought that has to go into this, the obsession that goes into this, the fanaticism that goes into this should scare the living Look, I don't even want to read all of it, let alone sit down and think about this is our platform and this is exactly how you have to live and this is exactly how you're going to sell your daughters off into who knows what with crazy people. I don't ask for a lot from my kids because I want them to lead their lives, but please, if you're listening, no, not this. I will never sell you into marriage. I think that's the least I can say I will not do. But, you stop and you look at, really, honestly, you look at this kind of stuff, and it's got to scare us. And it's got to get, right-thinking people standing up and saying, no, can't do it, not going to do it, not going to allow it. Or maybe not. Or maybe, just because, hey, we're supposedly this Christian nation that believes in this stuff. Wow. Seriously, you got to take a look at this. It is that kind of scary. Talking about that kind of scary, HB2, as you know, the federal government said, hey, Pat McCrory, you've got to not do that by Monday. They're saying, man, not gonna be able to do it. So it's gonna happen. Interesting. We'll see where the fight will be. But Pat McCrory, the governor of North Carolina, evidently took to one of the big morning radio shows there in North Carolina, also broadcast across the country, I understand, where he was talking about Bruce Springsteen. And he said that the reason that Bruce Springsteen canceled his show in North Carolina was not because of the HB2, not because of his political stances, but really, honestly and truthfully, because the Bruce couldn't sell out the arena there in Greensboro. In fact, what he said is, I love Bruce Springsteen. I love his music, but he canceled the concert in Greensboro. By the way, they only had 8,000 tickets sold, with all respect to him. But did Bruce mention that? They didn't get the ticket sales they wanted. So everyone got a big half. You're right. Yeah, 8,000. And he repeated it a couple of times. Now you go to the Greensboro Coliseum and you ask them, they say, no, we have 16,000 seats and about 15,000 of them are sold. So now you've got McCrory who's kind of gone back on that. But again, it's you can't be honest. What happened to be honest? What happened to thou shalt not lie? What I find scary is that there are people who are going to hear that and go, see, it wasn't a political statement. Bruce is just not that popular. There wasn't any political things. He was just covering his own behind. I give Springsteen the utmost credit. Honestly, I give all of the artists who've turned away from North Carolina right now, because if we don't, honestly, if we don't stop this insanity, and soon, it's going to get worse. And I've been saying this for years. We've allowed the crazy to dictate what happens to the rest of us. And there's part of me that wishes we could just go back to ignoring them. But at some point, you've got to pay attention to what crazy's getting away with. And all of the tax cuts that they get and all of the wealth that they're accumulating and the guns. You're talking about a well-armed militia right there fighting for their God. I'm telling you, not good times ahead. And it's people like Trump. It's people like these ultra right-wing talk shows who have been pushing this kind of stuff that really, I think, have put us in this situation. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. But do something about it. That's the other part. Quick break, right back.
We need leaders who get it.
Ad wars. Clean energy advocates want you to vote. So the fossil fuel industry is attacking them. Big climate victory for kids in court in Washington state. Big conservation victories for lions and elephants. Plus,
you can actually feel the heat of the ivory burn.
Kenya's big bonfire of the ivories to stop illegal trade.
Lighting all of those fires and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Climate change is not science.
Yes, it is, actually, Ted Cruz.
You want a skeptic? I'm right here.
I don't, but thanks for asking. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, some bad news as we get started here for opponents of fracking. Colorado's highest court has overturned 2 city bans on hydraulic fracturing that happened on Monday. The court decided that state law preempts those local laws that were passed by the citizenry in those towns. But apparently state law has precedence, and Republicans no doubt are rejoicing, even though they pretend to like small government. They only like it when the small government agrees with them. And in Colorado, too many Democrats also going along with the fossil fuel industry on fracking.
Yes, apparently Democratic Governor John Hickenlooper agrees with the fossil fuel industry.
Well, there you go. What else do you have for us that might be cheerier today?
Well, this isn't so cheery. The fossil fuel industry and the Republican Party are trying a new tactic in their campaign to stop climate action. Politico reports that America Rising, the Republican Party's opposition research organization, is using its super PAC, America Rising Squared, to attack individuals like 350.org founder Bill McKibben with a new negative ad campaign.
Everything else can wait. Violence can wait. Poverty can wait.
We're going to put a $1 tax on gasoline tomorrow. Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Their first negative ad campaign goes after billionaire clean energy advocate Tom Steyer, whose super PAC Next Gen Climate Action itself has launched a $1 million campaign to mobilize young voters to vote in November.
I'm Tom Steyer. We need leaders who get it so that we can move away from coal and oil to clean energy. If you want to do something about climate change, you can. Please, register and vote.
Perhaps it's a sign that the fossil fuel industry may be getting a little worried that young voters who do care about climate change will come out to vote in November.
I will also add this. Tom Steyer is a billionaire who is putting a lot of money into this effort to fight climate change. But unlike the Koch brothers, Tom Steyer is showing up in his own ad saying, this is me, this is what I believe, and standing behind it. He's not putting a bunch of money into AstroTurf groups, pretending to be something other than what they are.
Climate action is also moving forward in the courts. Yet another federal judge in the Pacific Northwest has now sided with children who sued to force the state of Washington to act on climate change. On the heels of a similar court victory in Oregon, this judge in Washington state said that the kids and their sponsor organization, the nonprofit Our Children's Trust, cannot wait. He ruled that the Washington State Department of Ecology must now deliver new regulations to cut emissions by the end of this year.
Can't wait to see how the fossil fuel industry goes after those pesky children.
Big developments in wildlife conservation. In Kenya, in a dramatic bonfire ceremony over the weekend, the Kenyan government set fire to thousands of elephant tusks and rhino horns, destroying an ivory stockpile worth an estimated $200 million on the black market. That's to send a message to save the majestic animals that bring billions of dollars in tourism to the country. Kenya's president said that their elephants are worth more alive than dead, and he warned that poaching has increased in recent years. An elephant is estimated to be killed every 15 minutes, and the species faces extinction within 10 years. But in America, some good news. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus has ended its captive elephant performances. The elephant's final big top performance ever was on Sunday in Pennsylvania, partly due to pressure from animal welfare groups, but mostly a massive shift in public attitudes. The CEO of Ringling Brothers' parent company, Kenneth Feld, told CBS News that it was time.
It's a bittersweet decision. There's no question about that. But it is the best thing, and we felt this was the right time to do it.
Wow. So no more orca shows at SeaWorld soon, and now no more prancing elephants in the greatest show on earth, Ringling Brothers.
Yep. And finally, 33 captive circus lions rescued in raids on illegal circuses in Peru and Colombia have now landed safely in Africa on Monday in what is believed to be the largest airlift of lions in history. Nonprofit wildlife group Animal Defenders International raised money from private donations to transport the 33 lions. Most of them have permanent injuries from abuse and will now live out their lives in a new wildlife sanctuary in Africa.
Very good. Now, if we can just keep them away from those tourist trophy hunters from the U.S., we'll be in good shape. Thank you, Des. For much more on that story and all the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us and follow us on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the
most important issues of the day. This is the Rick Smith Show.
I got news for you, and it's going down. Before you come home and tell me you're not angry, and I'll be leaving town.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. So, like I said, I'm still stuck on the whole Quiverful movement thing, on the big LetThemMarry.org networking opportunity where you can go and you sell off your daughters. Yes, I wonder what kind of price you'd get. I think Martin Sheen did a bit about that on The West Wing. How much you would get. I wonder what the going price for daughters in the Christian world is today. I'll tell you, just nuts. Anyway, let's find out what's going on around the world and in Washington, D.C. I've got Bob Ney, Talk Media News Service. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick.
So I understand the president was in Flint yesterday. What happened?
Well, he drank the water, and I honestly wonder if they pre-tested that or not. I guess not.
Don't they take the Secret Service along with them to pre-test everything?
Well, I wondered, just out of curiosity, not trying to be picky here. I just kind of wondered about that.
But didn't he have to?
To reassure people.
Didn't he have to?
I mean, I think he wants to reassure people, that the water is okay, but the pipes aren't okay. And as I understand it, and besides the criminal side to this and the negligence side to it, as I understand it, I mean, unless I'm wrong, they have to dig all the pipes. The pipes have to be removed, all of them.
Absolutely,
they're ruined.
And that's just ruined. I mean, that's just not Flint. That's here in Harrisburg. That's in my hometown of Cleveland. That's all over the country. We've got an aging infrastructure. I mean, here it's like 100 and 120 years old.
Mm-hmm. And this one is going to be, nobody in the town can be assessed for it because they didn't cause it. They ran, lead through there, so they didn't cause it.
But as I understand, I mean, some of the pipes are lead anyway. I mean, that's part of it, the problem as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think the optics, he had to drink the water, so I wasn't really surprised. But he says, "Look, I've got your back." Good rhetoric.
Yes, he did. I'm trying to. I understand he went there and he was trying to keep calm. I mean, I fully get that. I just don't know what it all achieves at the end of the day. If I was a citizen, I'm sure they've heard "I've got your back" from a lot of people, and I would want to know what it translates into,
No, this is what I had someone on just a couple of days ago to talk about this from the Center for American Progress, and she was like, "Oh, it's a great thing, and he's going to highlight the issue." And I'm going, "Yeah, but what's he going to do? I mean, at the end of the day, the do here is dig up all the pipes and fix the infrastructure." That I was hoping for some kind of an announcement going, "Hey, we're gonna redo this."
Right.
All right. There.
Yeah, I looked at the story, and I was trying to make sense of it, and it was pretty late in the process, frankly, of the president going there. Actually, the candidates have been there, but as far as when I saw I got your back, if I lived there, I'd be like, thank you, and I'm very respectful, but I want this paid for now. I want the time frame. How long do I have to continue to go through this? I would want to know.
No, I mean, but to be honest, I'm surprised Flint is getting this kind of recognition anyway. It's a poor community, and we don't really give a rat's behind about poor communities in this country.
Well, don't you think they got the recognition just because of the switch of the water, though?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason that, but I would argue that there was probably lead in the water to begin with, because we find in Allentown and other places around Pennsylvania, they've got higher lead content than Flint did. And we didn't know anything about that because it was in poor communities.
But as you know, what's gotten morphed here or twisted or, to their benefit, I guess, in the long run is the fact that the water was switched and it wasn't tested, so therefore it's somebody's fault.
Right.
And now if you take some of the towns, like the towns you're naming, Harrisburg, Blair, Ohio, down in the Ohio Valley still has some wooden mains, believe it or not, down in there. And some lead problems, I'm sure. But because nobody switched the water supply, it's going to be, on the city's back to figure out how to pay for it.
Right. But at the end of the day, don't we really need to have, some sane, rational, and look, I get that because, I was talking to a judge here, a couple of years ago who served on the school board here in the Harrisburg area back in the 70s when they wanted to replace the infrastructure back then and they couldn't figure out who was going to pay for it. And I'm going, at some point, don't we just have to figure out how we pay for it? I mean, through a federal government, some levying a tax, I don't know, some way, but it's got to get done.
Well, the state of Ohio has a capital improvement bill, and they take up to 5% of the state's, total appropriations and GDP, basically, gross, domestic product for the state, and you can up that if you want, if they have approval, and then they do a capital improvements bill, which is used for capital infrastructure, which is water lines, roads, all kinds of things. It's separate from the gas tax or anything. But in America, a big, huge push should be put for these types of infrastructure programs.
Absolutely. State
and federal cooperatives, because, these are good projects that help the communities and it helps jobs big time. I mean, this would talk about trades, and skilled workers. These are great jobs.
Absolutely. And, we need the next Eisenhower with the highway, the next Truman with the electrification or the phone lines. We need that we need the next Kennedy with the space project. We need some big thinking and big mobilization that I just don't know as a country we're capable of.
Because as Ellen Ratner said a long time ago, America's becoming shabby. I mean, we had this, we're a new country relatively in the world, of course, and we had these structures built that were relatively new, but now it's aging, and it's never been kept up.
Yep.
And the electric grids, the water and sewer systems, the highways, the entire infrastructure.
Yeah, we got stuff to do. So the question I have for you, Bob, is the Donald, since he's now the Republican nominee, is he going to fix all that?
Well, the Donald's got to get past the Republican Party to worry about Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders because the Speaker today, Speaker Ryan, doesn't know if he's going to support him, which is politically crazy.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, that's just politically unacceptable. It'd be like President Obama not saying which party he was going to support. You expect him to support his party. But I don't know if Trump... if he'll entertain ideas like this or not. I mean, I don't know.
Because it'd be something he could do huge. We could win bigly at this. I don't know.
What's that?
I got to tell you, I'm kind of freaking out at the insanity that's going on. But I had someone tell me that now that everyone else is here, Trump is going to be the guy because he's the last guy standing. What are the chances of your guy Kasich there being his VP?
I think the chances are good. I know the conservatives are all angry now at Trump because he said he might yield on the minimum wage. Well, he said he would. And I know they're freaking out and angry. And I know they don't like John Kasich because he expanded the health care bill. I understand that. But in all practical, purposes, John Kasich would not be a bad choice.
Yeah, but the question is, would Kasich do it? Because, someone tweeted that to me this morning, and I said, I got to be honest, I don't think an ego like Kasich will hook his political fortunes to a narcissist like Trump. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see that. I think Trump could extend the offer to him. I just don't know that Kasich would take it.
Yeah, I
he
don't
might
either.
wait for a Senate race or something.
So now they're talking about he may start naming cabinet members already, really?
That, if he does that, that will be the biggest nightmare in modern political history. Biggest.
But wouldn't it be
Number
a major
one,
media frenzy?
You have to. What's that, Rick?
Wouldn't it be a major media feeding frenzy, though?
It would be horrible. Now, on one hand, yes, it would dominate the headlines, but I promise you, as he names these people and he hasn't vetted them, there's a form you fill out. You have to tell whether you've done illegal things or do you have a problem. And if that process is not followed, the media is going to take, let's say he appoints 12 people, you can bet 4 of them are going to have problems and be scandals waiting to happen.
I got to tell you,
I get it.
It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, this is going to be an ugly next couple of months, I think.
Oh, it's going to be horrific. I mean, I think as we've heard people over the years, I know you hear it all the time. Politics. People say, "Oh, the lesser of the two evils." This time, people are really, a lot of people are going to say, "What am I going to do?" But even before we get to that point on Election Day, this is going to be gladiator material. This is going to be the most horrific, bloody, down in the dirt election in American history. Not modern, in American history.
Wow. Even worse than the Lincoln era, even worse than Jackson, even worse than those?
Yes, they didn't have TV and internet those days.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
Or radio.
Yeah, I tell you, it's going to be interesting. But I also understand that on the Democratic side, because that isn't really complete yet. It looks like Hillary's gonna get it, but you got Sanders who's saying he's evidently not committing to Hillary. Said he was going to do everything he could to make sure that Trump wasn't the president, but didn't necessarily say he was going to do anything to help Hillary.
Yes, there are 2 reasons he cannot do that today. And I know some people expect him to, but there's 2 reasons he absolutely can't. If he in any way indicates, yes, he'll support her, then, what's he running for? I mean, it dilutes his effort. It dilutes it. Now, if in turn, I mean, he could say it in a certain way, though, that rather than how he's saying it, to be honest with you. The second thing is that he hasn't made her go to the progressive side enough. And if he yields now to supporting her before cutting the deal of forcing her to take up some progressive agendas, he's not going to get that deal.
Yep. No, I mean, that's how the game's played.
Sure.
I've been saying you take it all the way to the convention.
I said that too. I don't care if he wins I don't care if he doesn't take another vote. He's going to take it all the way into the convention to keep her honest on progressive causes.
I'm with you. I saw another story today. The Justice Department is changing some of their verbiage. We're no longer going to be calling people released from prison felons or convicts or ex-cons or any of that stuff. Is that what's going on?
I can speak with authority on this. I personally am. It doesn't bother me because when I meet people and they don't know me and then they say, "What's your name? Give me your card." I go, "I'm Bob Ney. By the way, I was in prison." So because they're going to Google me. But for some people, there's a question. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but there's a question: is it used against them instantly?
I argue that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we changing the labels to?
Well, if you just change the verbiage, but you don't change the procedure, if you can get housing. I know a guy that came out of prison. He had a nonviolent crime. He actually, stole some things from his brother. And he was forbidden to move in when he got out of prison with his wife and son, forbidden, because they lived in a housing complex.
Right.
He was forbidden to live with them.
That's insane.
I think.
Because I'm of the mindset that if you've done your time, if you've paid your debt to society, I don't think it should be something that is marked on your forehead, tattooed on the back of your skull to follow you for the rest of your life.
What is really outrageous, absolutely, I mean, there's a lot of outrageous things, but having been in this boat now, and I'm lucky I was in the state of Ohio, but you serve your time in prison, you come out, and you can't vote?
Right.
Really?
So you're in favor of what McAuliffe's done then, right?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Why could you not vote? That's just the silliest thing I've ever heard.
Well,
you know.
Your party's going to sue in the state of Virginia. They're getting the best conservative jurist to come out
and horrible.
And deprive those 260,000. I guess I can't use felon anymore. Person who was in prison or something is what they're using now.
I can understand an argument that while you're in prison, you can't collect, Social Security or disability or vote while you're sitting there. I mean, you can make an argument there.
You lose your rights when you go to prison.
But you get on the outside and you can't vote forever? That's outrageous.
I'm with you. And finally, I guess some news about Prince.
Yeah, this one, and it's not to debate Prince and how he died, but it looks like there's some opiate use, of course, which can also be heroin or opiates. And I think the good thing about this is not to debate Prince and his lifestyle and drugs, but I think the good thing about it is that it brings it to the forefront because this is an epidemic in America, a catastrophic epidemic. And, there are 4,000 people a month. I mean, more are dying now than in wars, or more are dying than in car accidents. And I'm hoping that bringing this out, that he had this issue, and somehow will lead towards a bipartisan, look at this versus just locking people up.
Yeah, and maybe we'll look at the medical field, who for every little thing that happens, they're handing you Percocet or all of these painkillers like they're candy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, my wife just had surgery not too long ago. They gave her like 60 pills. And
I know.
She's like, they only told me to use them for a week, and now I've got 60 of them?
I sponsor people, and I sponsor some people that are in rehab and, in recovery. And I have sponsored actually doctors who tell me that they had very, very little training on addiction in medical school. Very little.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a start of it. It's a horrible tragedy, and I hope that somehow politically we get around to actually doing something. Seems rational. So. Bob, I appreciate the time, man. Always great talking with you.
Thank you, Rick.
Always great. Bob Ney, Talk Media News Service. Quick break, right back to wrap things up. Stick around. Listen to the Rick Smith Show.
Radio of, for, and by we the working people. The Rick Smith Show.
No one likes a smart aleck, or a stupid one for that matter. A really stupid one is called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which masquerades as an educational group that simply assists state officials with policy research. In fact, it is a corporate-financed, far-right-wing political front group that writes and aggressively pushes anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-environmental, anti-immigrant, anti-public, and other extremist anti-the-people legislative proposals. ALEC's operatives take these cookie-cutter bills from state capital to state capital, getting Republican governors and key legislators to introduce them. Then ALEC helps organize AstroTurf campaigns to ram such ugliness into law. Governor Scott Walker's repressive agenda in Wisconsin is an ALEC product. So is Arizona's war on Latinos, as is Florida's murderous stand-your-ground, shoot-'em-up law. However, all of this led ALEC to get stupid. Its leaders got to thinking they were bulletproof, that they could shove this stuff down people's throats all across the country and the people would just accept it. Wrong. In fact, stupidly arrogant. Not only have people rebelled, they've also organized and mobilized. Groups like Center for Media and Democracy, Color of Change, Common Cause, Occupy Wall Street, and People for the American Way have rallied grassroots people to hit ALEC where it really hurts, its pocketbook. Suddenly, key corporate sponsors were hearing from outraged citizens and customers, and company after company is now withdrawing their sponsorship. Among those recently jumping off the ALEC bandwagon are Coca-Cola, Kraft Foods, Mars, McDonald's, PepsiCo, and Wendy's. This is Jim Hightower saying, to connect with these various efforts, go to alecexposed.org. That's ALEC exposed.org.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
Bringing sanity and rational thought back to America. Rick Smith.
So tomorrow's going to be a big day on the program. Evidently, tomorrow in Pittsburgh, the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, going to find their way to Pittsburgh for their big summit that it's their Spring Task Force Summit. It's going to be at the Omni William Penn Hotel there in Pittsburgh. What they do is they bring in corporate lobbyists from around the country. They bring in the big, deep-pocketed funders from around the country to, wine and dine our conservative legislators. And then, of course, say, hey, we'll give you a huge amount of money so you can run your campaigns because, hey, it's campaign season, right? And then all you have to do is promise that you're going to go after those workers. Promise that you're going to get us that paycheck destruction bill that's been banging around. Promise that you're going to continue to really support that whole no rights at work agenda that the wealth class has been pushing. That's all you got to do. Promise that you're not going to put any of those environmental things or tax the drillers or close the Delaware loophole or do anything to harm the wealth class of the country. And, of course, continue to privatize and charterize and cut education funding for public schools because we need to get rid of that, just eviscerate it completely. And, of course, we want to lower wages and working conditions, do all those things, keep those people in line. Now, that's it. That's what we want to do. So tomorrow they're going to have their big shindig, and the Allegheny Central Labor Council, along with a number of other labor, environmental, faith groups, going to be out at Mellon Square there in Pittsburgh at noon to protest Alex even being in the city. And I'm okay with that. Keep Alec out of here. And as they're saying, we want to make Pennsylvania an Alec-free zone. Alec's Pennsylvania state chair is a representative named Brian Ellis, just so you know. Because we evidently have a bunch of ALEC members here who are doing their bidding, which is not surprising because the reality is there's a lot of this anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-environmental legislation banging around in our General Assembly. The only reason it hasn't come to the forefront here in Pennsylvania is because we've got a decent governor. And on Monday, we're going to talk with Governor Wolf about ALEC, about what's going on, and, the things that have been thrown his way, the reason we haven't had a budget, all of that stuff. Tons of stuff to get to. You're going to want to tune in tomorrow and every day to keep up. Thanks for being here. If you missed any of the show, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you get the podcast, the Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Together, we can make America better. Email rick@thericksmithshow.com or interact with us anytime at thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. It's color.